just read that off somewhere else on Twitter today, but
I've seen a few of those where people are just like, "Oh, I'm the only one in Cats."
We're
I'm
talking over. Hi, everyone. Welcome to. Well, first of all, happy holidays, whatever you may be celebrating. It's been a while. It's been about a full 10 days. But we'll be talking about the weekend of December 20th through 22nd, as well as the Christmas Day haul for box office, as well as news. And this is the official Star Wars spoiler extravaganza.
oh boy.
You have been warned.
Yes. As always, I am CP.
From the horror show and in Fuegotainment, I'm Jaime in Fuego.
And I am Baby Yoda after it's grown up and experienced life a little bit. And now realize that little ball
wow.
in the ship of the Mandalorian. Oh, that's amazing! Yeah, so I'm some dude named Lindsey. YouTube, my 2 cents of nonsense. Twitter at Lindsey Peg. What's up? How you doing? Let's talk Star Wars.
Yeah, let me. Enough with the festivities. I need to take this thing off.
I'm wearing that sweater I got for Christmas. It is very warm and soft.
So
yeah, this.
What's up? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say this silly shirt says "Elf, I am not." So yeah, Elf, I am not. Anyway.
So to the weekend of last weekend, the 22nd, Rise of Skywalker pulled in 177 million, which is underwhelming. I don't know what life is anymore at this point. Jumanji in second with 27 million. Frozen 2 came in third with 13 million. Cats came in fourth with 7 million. And Knives Out dropped to fifth with just about 6 and change. We'll call it 7 million.
Still in the top 5, though. Go or Knives
right
Out.
Up until yesterday.
Yeah, still hanging around. Love
yeah,
it.
Cats is the interesting one as that has kind of fallen. I'll open with that news. Lindsey, you have the quote that I'll be putting up on screen. So if you could just read the information that I have for Cats, which is a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
My name is CP, and I like to smell butts. And okay, so the actual real quote is: "Cats released to theaters with numerous glitches, not numbers, with numerous."
I have the crappy vision. You're the.
I got the broken mouth. Okay, so starting over. Cats released to theaters with numerous glitches, most notably a scene which features Judi Dench's human hand with a wedding ring on it instead of her paw, and Universal has revised the prints for download as of December 22nd for theaters, and urging theaters to replace the current print as soon as possible. And I hope that none of them do it. I want this movie to be glitchy and horrible the entirety of its run.
Yeah.
But theater owners have claimed such a movie released in this state is unheard of with such a wide release.
To fix it after it's out.
The quote?
The quote at the bottom is Evan Rachel Wood, who was live streaming her watching it. I guess she had a SAG copy or something from home, where she put to Instagram or Twitter, and she just kept saying "what the fuck" over and over and over and over again, and that has since been deleted.
Interesting.
Evan Rachel Wood.
Very articulate, obviously, but I mean, this is the same girl who dated Marilyn Manson at one point, So it's like, I don't know. But
so she has a very high bar of what the bleeper.
Well, we're trying to avoid being for kids, so at this point I don't know if we should be PG-13.
So she said, "What the coke?"
So I hope none of you have seen it. Guys, Cats?
I'm going to at some point. I have not gotten to it yet, but I am going to do this to myself.
Yeah, I almost did some mind expansion preparation and went to go watch it, but I ended up just seeing Skywalker instead because I needed to further process.
A second time, you mean?
Movie and yes, I saw it. So I've seen it twice now. Skywalker. No Cats though. No gatos. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. When the trailer came out, I was already kind of mind made up. Apparently, fans of the play who have seen it have said that all the choreography has changed. Now, I'm not somebody who follows musicals or plays, and is choreography that big a deal in something like this, Lindsey?
I mean, I'm also not a huge musical guy, but I would assume like part of the reason to do your own version of a musical is to have your own choreography. Like, I don't really remember. I did like Music Man and stuff in high school, and I never really remember the director being like, "No, that's not the choreography in the book." At any point. So I would hope the choreography is different, because you're going to shoot a movie different than how you're going to shoot a stage production. So what looks good on stage isn't necessarily going to look good on film.
Yeah. I have to be honest. I'm not.
The director does struggle with that. I'll throw that out there. He struggled with it in the past, so he's probably going to struggle with it.
Who is the director of Cats?
The Tom Hooper, the guy who did Les Mis a few years back.
And I think Chicago also, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Chicago was nominated. Won
Chicago's good.
Oscars, didn't it? Yeah.
Chicago's good. So I take it back. He said.
Well, Chicago is kind of like aiming a camera at a stage. Like Chicago, for the most part, is not to take anything away from that movie, but for the most part, Chicago is a theater stage where a lot of things are playing out, in front of a stationary camera.
He also did The Danish Girl, King's Speech. Oh, this guy just lives to make Oscar movies.
I don't think he did it this year.
Okay, I was incorrect about Chicago. Sorry.
Okay.
Les Mis, King's Speech, John Adams, the HBO miniseries. Not really not an extensive amount of musical experience, but
yeah.
Oh, and he directed 2 episodes of his Dark Materials, which I've liked. That's been a good HBO
show.
Oh,
HBO, I see.
So, yeah.
It's not TV. It's HBO.
Yeah. So they continue to proclaim.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, so apparently this movie is for nobody, and they're
and through that it's for everybody.
Yeah. So
well, it was tracking at 10 to 15, right? And then it obviously massively underperformed. I'm sure Star Wars didn't help. I'm sure other family friendlier options, because this is a PG movie. But it is one of the longest running on Broadway, so that could have something to do with purists being upset about some of the alterations, and then the casual audience goer is like, this appears horrifying to me. So maybe it kind of did what Rise of Skywalker did, by in turn trying to please everyone and then please no one, sort of.
Nice seed planting, sir. So I'll go to the. I mean, you brought up Cats. It was released. See, I thought it had a Christmas Day release date, but I don't know if they pushed it up or what, but it went up against Rise of Skywalker. So I was pointing at Christmas as the day for Cats if it were going to make money, and it didn't. It was not in the top 5. Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. This is Christmas Day. This is yesterday only. Brought in 32 million. Jumanji brought in 13 million. Little Women, which was released yesterday, brought in 6 million. Uncut Gems, which was released to wide. It had a small release, but was now wide as of yesterday. 6 million. Spies in Disguise, which also was released yesterday, 5 million. Cats, it was in 7th, below Knives Out. So Knives Out still hanging around, and Cats, which is 10 days old. Another
Knives beat claws. Yeah.
Interesting note. I made this post on Twitter yesterday. As of Christmas Day, within 15 miles, there is not a theater of me that has Black Christmas available to view. So it took 12 days for Black Christmas to be irrelevant on Christmas. 12 days, that's unfortunate for a movie that has the title Christmas in it. I digest.
Wow, it's down to the theaters that are within 10, 15 miles of me. There we go. So you have to go 13 miles away from me to find a theater that has more than one showing today.
Right, and what city do you live in, Lindsey?
Altadena, California. Los Angeles, California.
You jerk.
Yeah, it's still within a few for me, including the theater in downtown Phoenix, the AMC that I most frequently go to. So it's still there for a couple screenings, but yeah, it has the mass exodus has already commenced, and on Christmas Day it was 14. It looks like 435,000 that day. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Some numbers.
So so that experiment broke. Oh, anyway,
Yeah.
so Cats. The interesting thing was, so I read a blurb that said that Rise of Skywalker was the highest grossing Christmas Day box office ever, and that's incorrect.
For 2019, it is.
Yeah, it's the highest grossing Christmas Day of 2019. Star Wars: The Force Awakens is still the highest grossing Christmas Day haul with 49 million. Rise of Skywalker is second with 32. Last Jedi third with 27. Rogue One fourth with 26, and then Sherlock Holmes in fifth.
So
yeah,
random.
like what? Which is.
I mean, I like
actually
that
remember seeing that on Christmas very distinctively with my family. Yeah, after the meal and stuff. So
That's awesome.
It's
So you were part of that.
it's funny. Star Wars used to make May, like what we know of blockbuster season happened because of Star Wars, and now with Disney, they're like, nah, we're gonna take Christmas now. It's just so weird.
yeah,
Well, I
mean, May
the
the
Avatar, right?
One more time.
Well, because Avatar had its release in December, trying to cash in on the success of Titanic,
Well,
and now Disney is trying to cash in
The-
on James Cameron.
There appears to be that, like, Lord of the Rings was a constant December thing too. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Like, there seems to be these like tentpole things, and Sherlock Holmes learned the hard way because it did open strong, but what fell behind, I think, The Hobbit. I want to say it was there was something else that Sherlock Holmes went up against after Christmas and lost. But
That's a good question.
yeah, I is it The Hobbit 09? Wait, what's Sherlock Holmes 09? 10?
09. Oh no, so it was 09, so that it lost to Avatar.
Oh, the Avatar. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Derp.
I thought it was the year after. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Speak of the devil.
yeah.
Hey, made more
which
money
was
on Christmas than
obviously
Avatar.
Yeah, which was obviously a creeper of a film, as we know, and the fact that it just kind of hung around.
What, Avatar?
Very true.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. James Cameron seems to have a niche for that with Titanic, Avatar.
Mm-hmm. You're like, do you have to let it linger? Do I need to quote the Cranberries here? Like, seriously?
Good pull, sir. By the way, how much money did Sherlock Holmes pull at the box office? Give me some estimates here, because you guys will not believe this number I just saw.
I know it's the highest grossing. Oh no, wait. I know that
Domestic?
I know
or-
there's a stat where it's one of the higher grossing films to never come in first place.
Well, okay, I'm just confirming here. This, yeah, they both cracked 500 million.
They
Worldwide.
The first and yeah, worldwide. But like the second one, okay, so I got the first one right here. Domestic 200. That's pretty good.
for Sherlock.
And that was 10 years
Yeah.
ago, too. I mean,
It was. And 186, so a little bit less domestically for the sequel, but still that's
Not bad.
freaking Sherlock Holmes. Like, okay.
Yeah.
and they're working on 3 finally, although Guy Ritchie's not returning to direct, if I recall correctly.
Oh, is he not? Oh, that's unfortunate.
What the hell did he direct this year? What's his most recent thing?
Aladdin.
Oh.
Was it the King Arthur movie, maybe? Or was it... I know this new one with
The hell?
McConaughey.
Who the hell-
and just this eclectic cast looks badass, but...
Who the hell directed the Jamie Foxx, Taron Egerton? What is that movie that I'm thinking of in the titles? Was that King Arthur?
Oh, that
Robin
was
Hood.
Robin Hood.
Edgar Wright? Are we talking Baby Driver?
What? No.
No, Baby Driver's a good one, but no, Robin Hood 2018, directed by Otto Bathurst.
Oh yeah, so I have it all wrong. All right, so yeah, I think you're right, Fuego, with the King Arthur thing. I'm getting my repetitive releases mixed up. So yeah.
Or actually, no, Aladdin this year. He did Aladdin,
That's right.
which you would not even think is a Guy Ritchie.
And I didn't hate it. Like it.
I didn't either. It was like I liked it better than The Lion King because it did something different at least, which I kind of appreciated. So.
Yeah. If Aladdin was the only thing that I kind of winced at as far as feminism this year, that I would call it a win. But 2019 was a weird year for women.
Speaking of Disney at the box office, just because to stay within the
Sure.
ballpark here, did you guys see the thing where Disney made 80% of the box office this year?
What?
The total box office for 2019. Here, let's see if I can pull up the.
How much percent?
Office 80%
Of total box office?
80% of 2019's box office hits were Disney movies. As the year comes to a close, Disney has remained king of the 2019 box office, producing 8 out of the 10 year's highest-grossing films.
What are the other two? Universal? What, Warner? Joker? Warner?
That's a good question. Yeah, Joker. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely Joker.
I don't know what the second one would be. Highest box office 2019.
Universal? Can't be.
Oh, wait, it's
Us?
probably like Hobbs and
Is it
Shaw
us?
or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, Detective Pikachu.
And that's also Warner.
Which was Sony? Was that Sony? Or wait, no, that can't be Sony because it's a Nintendo property. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, who did make that? That's a good question. Detective Pikachu.
Paramount?
It's hard to type Pikachu sometimes. Distribution company, Legendary. So Warner Brothers.
All right, so Warner had the other two.
Yeah, good for Warner. They're holding on.
Count your days, because they're next. They're next. They're going to be bought out. Do it.
Let the monopoly continue. Like
80%. That's insanity.
Well, I mean, it's a weird year. You're never gonna. This is probably gonna be the highest grossing year in film for a long time. You had Avengers: Endgame. You had 6 other movies from Disney that all grossed $1 billion, and now you have Rise of Skywalker. So it's like that.
Yeah, but that's
still
in-house. Like Disney knows.
Yeah.
Like they have to look at their own calendar and say, all right, so we have Endgame. We have. Why would you release Aladdin, Dumbo, and Lion King all in the same year? And oh, by the way, we have this Star Wars thing at the end of the year on top of Toy Story. Like what?
And Frozen
right,
2,
like
and the Endgame, and it's nuts.
Whoa.
I don't think anyone expected Captain Marvel to be $1 billion movie, but yeah, and Captain Marvel.
Yeah, like that doesn't make. I mean, I get it. If you can do it, obviously do it. But like, what? You're just ruining it. You're saturating the market, and I get it. I get why Warner wants to be like, listen, we want to try releasing shit to people straight to their house because we can't compete.
Well, Iger is set to step down within the next couple of years. I think.
What is that going to do?
Well, I mean, just he wants to go out on a high note. Like he's like maybe like that's why again we're teasing what we're going to be talking about for a long time here in a minute here. Star Wars feels like it needed a little more time in the oven if we're being honest.
Ooh.
We'll get to all that. But maybe that's why it got squeezed out the same year as Endgame because he's like no I want 2019 to be my year. Marvel's wrapping up. Let's just wrap up the Star Wars thing. Let's just let's just make this a big year so I can go out not on the highest note but close to the highest note of my career.
Yeah. Another thing, A Rise of Skywalker as of right now is over $500 million worldwide, which is good.
And so
that needs to be said.
And I mean, even if the 177 was like disappointing, because there was even a Box Office Mojo article like early in the weekend after it crushed on Friday. They're like, this is probably going to go for over 190. It could cross 200. And then sure enough, our speculation, none of us thought, when we last did a show that it was going to cross 200, and it fell well below those expectations. So,
yeah.
I mean,
but still, I don't know what it is that because it's Star Wars, does it have to be $2 billion? Like I don't know what is success anymore if if $177 million in 3 days isn't good.
It's capitalism, man. Because you got to make those shareholders happy, and Disney's got shareholders, right? So you have to give the shareholders more money this year than you did the previous year.
Well, so then, what are you doing releasing this movie in the same calendar year as your Endgame property, which just annihilated records? So there's I'm going to try to use a music analogy with Star Wars and Avengers. People go to concerts. Star Wars is like the Rolling Stones. It's a thing that people have known for years and forever, and they have concerts still. They still tour. If
they were just here this year in Arizona.
If I were a promoter, I wouldn't be promoting the Rolling Stones and Taylor Swift in the same year. I mean, they both pull in audiences, but they both have very different reasons and established fan bases. Avengers is a very now thing, where Star Wars is kind of more of a establishment, bringing up your family. The stat that always gets buried when people shit on Last Jedi is the fact that it was the highest selling Blu-ray of that year, higher even than Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. People want to watch that stuff at home.
Yeah.
So $500 million and we're just shoo-shooing it. I like, what are we doing here? What is this show anymore?
It's 24-hour news cycle. You got to get them clicks. Rise of Skywalker is a financial failure and Disney's in trouble. People are going to click on that. That's not an article. Yeah. At least I hope to God that's not an article out there right now. But, you got to get them clicks.
I was about to say, clickbait, man, it is so big in this current nerd culture where, between the Screen Rants and the Colliders and, Junkies and all of these different outlets that I keep kind of a vigilant eye on because they do similar stuff to what I like discussing. I mean, so it's just the name of the game, man.
Do we have... Go ahead.
It's why I'm so bad at the game, because I look at that and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
Right. Right. Well, I would hope that we're a little more, we're not relying on clickbait. That's for certain. It's just there's these trends and I like to focus on the trends and the math and the precedent that predicts a lot of this stuff and it keeps changing and it's ever evolving. We've only been around a couple of years and I can't properly predict what a calendar year looks like anymore, and I used to be able to. So that's just it.
But now we have Box Office Mojo pushing this thing of what a movie made in a year, because that's what people care about, not the total box office poll. They want to know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, it is. There's. You're right. People like. We're a stats-based show, and people point to these nonsensical numbers like they have any sort of meaning, and it's just, the Rotten Tomato score is this. Well, yeah, okay. Did you like it? Who the fuck cares if it's a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes? Did you have a good time or not? I don't understand.
And I love how that is the discussion. Anytime anyone mentions Rotten Tomatoes now, the tweet or the Facebook post or whatever will be filled with people saying no, that's not how it works. But still, people just approach it like that's our culture. We've moved past the hatred of Rotten Tomatoes, but it's still I don't know. What are you gonna say for you?
So, I was just going to chime in. There's a reason Box Office Mojo has, an audience score and, the tomato score. It's to show the drastic despondency that often is the case, where audiences love stuff and critics will just slog it. And it's funny with Rise of Skywalker. I've talked to a lot more people that liked this movie than liked The Last Jedi. And yet critics savaged this movie. They said, it's fan service heavy, it's, overstuffing the turkey. I feel like it's both of those, for better or for worse, in a lot of ways. But just kind of a point Lindsey made, though, is the fact that, give stuff room to breathe, and perhaps Disney didn't give stuff room to breathe with such an oversaturated slate. But as they continue accumulating more IPs and more studios and all this different stuff, it's probably only going to get worse. That 80% number is scary, staggering.
Yeah.
Man. So I don't know. I don't see them course correcting. I think it'll only get worse over time.
Right. Looking 2020, of course, being hindsight. I'm thinking about 2020 for Disney, and what would it have?
And that's it. Nothing else in 2020. Just Disney.
Well, right. Would it have killed them to push to Star Wars back to May? What do they got coming out in 2020 that it's another thing that like goes to what we were talking about with 2019. They have so many heavy hitters in 2019 where it's just like, all right, and what's 2020 going to look like? Because they had so many big time like event movies this year. So,
well, and also franchise culmination films to have like this big franchise culmination of sorts for both Star Wars and Marvel, which are arguably their biggest IPs, especially in like the male 18 to 25 or if even older, you know. So I would have personally loved if the last two Star Wars films, both Solo and this one, had been allowed to shift as opposed to just sticking on those release dates, because of the fact that I think they could have been improved. They wouldn't have felt as rushed. And both of them had directorial changes and massive script rewrites and all this different stuff. And they felt kind of, in some ways, I had more Solo, and I really am shocked to say that. I mean, there was a lot that I liked about Skywalker, and we'll get to talking about that at some point.
They felt what? They felt. You said skipped.
They felt rushed to me. Yeah. You know, most definitely rushed. Like they hurried the process because they didn't want to back out of those release dates, and you know they wanted to continue with December, but. As you mentioned earlier, May the Force be with you. You know, the May the 4th thing. They you know, it's been their claim for a long time, and it's been weird seeing December. I'm assuming it's because there's so much more summer competition now, and
it's Star Wars. If
that they should have stuck in December.
Yeah, if you can't hang with the franchise culmination of Star Wars, then you gotta What they take? They took 10 years bringing, you know, this Avengers saga through 23, 24 movies. How many? Something like that.
I think it was 22, 23, something like that. Yeah.
Granted, that's 2 point something movies a year for 10 years. That's a lot. But here we had Star Wars. We've had a Star Wars movie every year since 2015, and I don't know, maybe a little too much too quick.
Well, they wanted to just make it the new Marvel. They just out the gate, this is gonna be our new Marvel, Star Wars, and they bet a little too much on that. Would you like to know how many major movie releases they had in 2019, by the way, Disney?
Oh, please.
This is released.
I'd like to know 2020's slate, but
a dozen.
Yeah.
I've got 2020s as well. So this is just theaters. This is not Disney Plus. Frozen 2, Maleficent, Lion King, Toy Story, Aladdin, Dumbo.
Oh, that's just Disney.
And that's just Disney. So not Marvel, no.
So you had 3 more for Marvel: Endgame, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man. I mean, I guess maybe that's more Sony, but whatever. Just for simplicity's sake, we'll count it. And then Star Wars. So that's 10 movies. And then they've got 7 coming out next year. So they easily could have pushed Star Wars back.
Yeah, because they have 2 Pixars coming out next year. They have Eternals and Black Widow. They have Mulan, obviously.
Oh, right, Mulan.
What else? I'm not looking at the list. But...
Oh, actually, that's a good point here. This list of 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's not counting Marvel. That's just the Disney movies. So you got those 2. You got 2 more Marvel movies. So that's 9 movies coming out next year.
What?
So I guess maybe if they push Star Wars back, it's 9 2019 and 10 in 2020.
What does Disney have in 20?
So okay, hold on. Let me get back.
So
there.
Mulan. So for live action
Mulan.
Artemis Fowl.
Yeah, Mulan.
Oh, Artemis Fowl got pushed back.
That is Disney. Yeah,
that did. Yeah. Jungle Cruise and Soul.
Oh, Jungle Cruise looks bad.
Yeah, Jungle Cruise.
And there's also that earlier Pixar movie, the one that has Tom Holland, and it's like The Weekend at Bernie's with the father. I forget the title of that.
Onward, which does look kind of dumb fun. I'm down. Yeah, it looks like it'll be cute.
Yeah, if you look at 2019, what Disney did, and then put it up against 2020, they're very lopsided years.
Because then you throw in Disney Plus and The Mandalorian and the Disney Plus exclusives like Claws and Lady and the Tramp. Yeah, 2019 is stacked.
Yeah, I don't get it. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, is there any news that we need to discuss before we put our claws into this?
Yeah, there was pretty much nothing being like wedged around the holiday week. I mean, there was like JJ responding to some of the criticism of how he approached this script and stuff.
He said everybody's right.
And yeah, that was really it.
So go ahead.
Yeah, he actually admitted that, well, he was just admitting that the criticism was well-founded, and but then he also went on further in a different interview to say that in this current state of fandom, it's like the initial reaction is to rage. I'm trying to find his actual quote here, but yeah, he was just like, okay, as opposed to just, kind of more calmly saying that you didn't appreciate certain aspects of stuff, like the new nerd culture is the rage culture, and it's I mean, he was lamenting it and saying that he was disappointed by it. He's like, you can't hate every aspect, you can look at pros and cons and try to be a little more objective with your criticism. So I don't know, I could tell his feelings were hurt with probably even more so the critic response than anything, especially after how much everyone just applauded Rian Johnson from the critic side of things, even if lots of fans didn't like it. So
this is the JJ was saying this, by the way. I missed.
Yeah,
he was indeed.
But the problem was, because of this outrage culture, there was, I mean, the funny thing is, people gave Rise of Skywalker a hard time because it basically forgets Last Jedi, and it's like, well,
it clearly favors.
It does retcon a lot.
Yeah. It's very. This movie is not subtle about the fact that it exists to undo things from Last Jedi, and it's, and like the more you think about it, the worse it gets. Like there's so many, and maybe this is gonna like just Rose alone. Like you don't need, like if you don't want Rose Tico in your movie, don't write Rose Tico in your movie. Just have her show up at the end with the big fleet of ships. Like we said, spoilers. Sorry. It's but that's fine. Just don't have Rose show up until the very end of the movie, and no one's gonna sit around going, why does Rose only say like 2 words every 35 seconds in these big scenes? It would have been fine, but no, they had to emphasize the fact that we're taking Rose out of the movie. Like she even has the line, "I'm not going on the adventure with you guys." She said that. It's like,
and she had such a hard time of it already, right? Because she left social media after all of the like hatred and stuff. Right. I mean, I didn't particularly love her character, but I didn't think she really got a fair shake, so to speak.
The last thing we saw of her in Last Jedi was one of the few things I really didn't like about Last Jedi.
Yeah, I agree, but her character still had moments and was and her existence was justified.
Right. But so this is a like your last warnings. We're going to really get into spoilers about Rise of Skywalker, because no news. We'll see you in 4 days for I would assume different numbers. I'm hoping one of these guys watches Uncut Gems, because I've seen it, and
I'll try and squeeze.
I'm going to try to squeeze in Bombshell too, as long as I feel better. Jeez.
I just to throw it out there, I did start Marriage Story. It's the first 40 minutes are not an easy watch. About 40 minutes in, it's suddenly like, okay, I'm engaged now. But then it also becomes incredibly one-sided. I mean, maybe the second half of the movie undoes that. I do like,
not particularly. It does really shift gears in my estimation without spoiling stuff, because I think I did mention during our last broadcast, right, that I watched it. I actually watched it twice, as a matter of fact. I watched it once by myself and another time with my lady, and I was as I watched it the second time, I actually liked it less.
Oh, really?
To be honest. So I feel like the performances are very strong from both Driver and Johansson, but I don't really like the story. It hits close to home in some aspects, and I don't feel like it's as neutral as its marketing campaign tried to imply with the separate posters and all this different stuff. So yeah, it like slid deeper into my like now it wouldn't be top 10 of the year for me. It'd be like probably like top 20.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. As somebody who's been divorced, I think it's brilliant. It's there's some things that I think experience kind of plays into some of that, but.
Of course, yeah. But I was sitting there watching this, like, I know Scarlett's been through at least one divorce, so a lot of this has to be hitting home for her. I don't know about Driver.
And she's engaged again.
Oh, she is. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's always fun.
Doing a divorce movie and while you're engaged. Yeah. Acting.
But yeah, the acting is amazing. I'll either finish it or I'll try and finish it. I don't know. 40 minutes in, it gets good. I'll say that. That's my initial review.
Well, regardless, for those of you who haven't watched Rise of Skywalker yet, we'll see you in a couple of days.
Oh.
What?
I do because it's about actresses and directors and stuff like that, marriage story, and they're putting on the play Electra, like the super old Greek play, which is like, there's the Oedipus complex. Electra complex is like the reverse of that. And so I like how they casually have like a Greek chorus who's kind of always around just talking about the plot. It kind of annoyed me at first, but then I clicked in my head that that's what they're being. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. I mean, Woody Allen did that 30 years ago, but that's kind of cute.
No,
but yeah, that's enough.
Noah Baumbach did another movie with Ben Stiller that I thought was quite all right, and I can't remember. I want to say 2017, 2016.
Was it Greenberg?
No, nope.
Damn,
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was March-ish. Either 2016 or 2017, and I thought it was all right. Like he's got an interesting style about him that I'm.
Yeah, there's a quirkiness to the way the movie was made.
Right.
I there's that one scene that's permeating Twitter that everyone's just standing in the same spot for the entire time. Like, oh God, that doesn't bode well for how this movie was directed. But for the first hour, 20 minutes, I thought it was all right. Yeah. Seems interesting.
Yeah. No. See, if anything, I was noticing some camera stuff. A lot of shots into corners. If you notice, like they're in offices and like tables are set up where the room kind of it looks like you're in a corner and it's shot from an angle where everything's coming to a head, and like literally, at least from the perspective, it's really like it was enough that I was like, interesting choice there.
It's very angular to kind of put you on edge. It's an interesting. It's a well-made movie. I'm just not sure if I'm digging the story. We'll
divorce.
So
what do you mean?
And the one CP was discussing is called While We're Young,
Yes.
and it had Naomi Watts.
Yes,
right?
yes,
from a couple years back.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's like a doc filmmaker or something. And, I don't think I saw that one actually.
It was all right. Like, it's nothing I'm gonna go crazy about, but I'd rather watch that than The Lighthouse. Whoa.
I like The Lighthouse. Screw you.
The light is it's a metaphor.
You said you like my lobster. You said you like my lobster.
The light is a metaphor for the audience who just want to be blinded.
It sure looks pretty,
4:3 black and white. Yeah, all right.
You said you liked my lobster.
Didn't eat your beans.
Let's go for the beans of the hour before we lose the chat here.
Right.
So Star Wars.
All right, here the official spoiler: Rise of Skywalker.
Nothing but Star Wars.
Get out if you don't want to hear anything. So I don't think I've publicly been on a channel since I've watched it, and I'll tell you guys, when I first got out of it, Emily said she enjoyed it, and I was like, this is the first time I'm kind of, after watching a Star Wars movie. And my uncle has been generous enough to lend me a copy, and I have fallen asleep on this movie 5 times trying to get through it a second time. So I don't know what that says about this movie. Gentlemen?
The middle drags in this movie. I mean, it starts out with a bang, with Kylo killing people and everything, and you get some Emperor action and obviously the snow clones, all that different stuff. But when it turns into going from this planet to find this, to this planet to find this, and
we're full spoilers.
I was honestly even nodding off in the theater the first time I watched it a little bit, because I was like, this is really dull. You know, and I don't really feel like a lot is happening. So it felt like a video.
You know what? The one thing that like it's so weird. Like there's things that I'm like, oh, I really wish they didn't ignore Last Jedi so much, but the banter between Poe, Finn, and Rey when they're together, I was like, oh, why couldn't this be a fucking whole, like that should have been the Luke, Leia, Han thing, because when there's what is it when they're talking to Sky, whatever the hell her name is, Exo Bliss, what the shit with the dumb helmet, Kerry Russell's.
Oh, I have no idea what any of the characters' names are.
Something Bliss. I don't know. Alexa Bliss.
And she did the whole Phasma thing where she like never took off the helmet.
I mean, you saw her eyes. Yeah.
At one particular point, right?
So
was it even Kerry Russell like doing? Is it
just for one day?
She's on the press rounds talking about the movie when she's barely in it. I was just like,
so they have a back and forth, and they're like, to Poe, you were a spice trader, and he's like, you were a stormtrooper, you were I forgot what the hell he said to Rey, but that was neat. It was a neat little back and forth. It felt so classic Star Wars. I was like, where has this been? But it's just so.
Before I start being mean to the movie, the two favorite scenes were I used to be Spice, used to be a stormtrooper, used to be a scrapper.
Oh yeah.
And when all three of them were together the first time, and Rey's like, you can't hyperdrive skip the Millennium Falcon. Well, I did. No, you can't. But I did. No, you can't. We're here. It worked. I'm alive. The ship's falling apart, but we're here. It clearly works. Why are you arguing? It's like, that was an adorable scene. I love them. Like,
and that was in the same spirit as like a line from Force Awakens where Han's like, that's not how the Force works. That's the same kind of vibe.
Right.
The best line from that movie.
JJ returning. And you could definitely tell. I mean, there was more of that playful whimsy that felt more Star Warsy. But I guess to have the more serious script be the second one fits in line with Empire in the original trilogy. To be fair,
and you get the feeling that they kind of pulled back a little bit with that too, because if there was a big complaint about Last Jedi, it was humor. So I'm wondering if we lost some of that, because it's in Rise of Skywalker. There's these moments where it's like, where the fuck was this all series? Because this is really neat.
Well, and it felt more like our traditional Star Wars humor as opposed to Last Jedi's biggest complaints were the fact that the humor didn't feel like Star Wars. And I point to the joking with Domhnall Gleeson's character at the very beginning of that film.
Spaceballsy.
I was immediately taken out of it. And I was like, this is a little too much. And it was very, very Mel Brooksy in that regard. Give me the sequel to that, The Search for More Money. I want that.
That's one of the best lines Mel Brooks ever wrote. Oh, just so good.
So Lindsey, wait, Lindsey. Before we really got into this, before we got streaming, you brought up a point that it's just been in the back of my head about Rey. Now re-say it so that I can really publicly think about it.
Just so on the same, like my fancy film terms, where I was like talking about certain. Okay. So we're gonna. So I'm gonna probably stick my foot in my mouth and just say words wrong and like miss. But let's just get embarrassed. We'll just be there together.
We're all naked in the hot tub together. Just get it out.
I love it. Okay, so when you're writing in storytelling, especially in screenwriting for movies and stuff, when you're kicking your story off, there's two things. There's the point of attack, and there's the inciting incident, and they usually get put together. It's no big deal. Like if your movie only has an inciting incident, like it's really not that big of a deal. Like the point of attack is what starts the story within the world, whereas the inciting incident is supposed to be what brings the main character into that story. So like in the original Star Wars, the point of attack is Leia's ship getting boarded and her getting captured by Darth Vader, but then the inciting incident is Luke seeing his dead aunt and uncle and deciding to go off and fight the Empire. So those are like just to give you examples.
Yeah. It's in screenwriting. It's also called intro conflict resolution. Intro.
Exactly.
And then conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, a point of attack, it's very easy to a prologue. Mini moves prologue.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like a lot of these words are very interchangeable. It's like, so that's why I'm like, I might be saying the wrong thing. If I am, I'm sorry. I'm half right.
Yeah.
Like the soul of what I'm saying is essentially correct.
Yeah.
So with Rise of Skywalker, the movie just kind of jumps right into it. Opening crawl, and then you're just
yeah.
And Palpatine comes back off screen, which just says in the opening title he's back, and then everyone's just reacting to him being back. But here's the thing, the good old video game Fortnite, the message to the galaxy that announced that the Emperor is back was in Fortnite. So Rise of Skywalker sold its point of attack to a video game. And while I was realizing that, it made me realize, what is the inciting incident of this movie? What's the moment where the characters decide and engage into the story and they go on the quest? Like, where's the moment where Bilbo's like, I will go with the dwarves, or when or Luke's saying, I will fight the Empire and become a Jedi just like my father? What's that moment in this movie?
Yeah.
And in chat, chime in. You guys' thoughts, discuss. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I could have forgotten something.
Well,
like those are just my thoughts right now.
So Bronco Juggalo off the bat, better than Empire.
Yeah, going right at us.
Wow.
Well, Shadows of the Empire is not a good comic series, let's be honest here. I mean, it's okay. Like, you got your Han Solo knockoff who's cute with his Millennium Falcon knockoff. That's cute. But
better than Empire.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not that into hip-hop. I've only seen a couple episodes of Empire, but, nonetheless, I know there's an audience out there for it. So.
Well, so he's now saying it's the third part of a trilogy. What do you expect? It's still a film. There still needs to be intro, conflict, resolution. This movie it's like it's midway through season of something where you're like, well, I mean, literally, isn't the first shot Kylo just mucking fools up in some forest?
I've got a fun fact.
Okay.
Too. Do you want to know what planet that scene is taking place on?
Oh, yes? No?
Mustafar.
Sure.
Oh, really?
The planet where Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader.
Yeah, the lava planet. Yeah.
And then lived on that planet in Fortress Vader for the better part of 30 years. And so it makes sense.
We saw in Rogue One, and
and sure, you go to that planet, you get a Sith artifact. That makes sense. Why don't you point
I was just going to say, why not tell us that? Yeah.
That would make that opening scene so much more interesting if we knew that was Mustafar and he was like raiding like the remains of Vader. It's context. Why can't I have that in the film?
Well, and one like aspect of like criticism people are giving, and with good merit, is the fact that to get so many of these additional little bits, whether it's about Snoke and his time when he was obviously cloned and came from the outer regions and all that different stuff, it's like you need to read so much of this expansive information that they have in their novels and in even some of the comic books in various cases to really fully understand what's going on, because the films are, I mean, with regards to the Rise of the First Order, with regards to the whole rebellion turning into the resistance with the New Republic, all this different stuff. It's like, yeah, you have to really deep dive into all of the other stuff Disney wants you to buy, because the films don't give as much information and can kind of tend to confuse in that regard. So,
what's funny is there's actually a second example of that in this movie. So there's what's her face, Kerry Russell's character, Eyes, and then there's
Eyes.
Eyes, just whatever her name is, it's Eyes.
She does have lovely eyes. I'll give her that.
They are very nice eyes. I will not take that from her. But then you have Finn's friend, who also used to be a stormtrooper, and who has the final shot with Lando.
And there's already there's a novel that's going to apparently explain all of that. Is it his daughter? Do they go on another adventure? It's all the tie-in marketing, man. That's the one thing that Disney has made it more about, is the tie-in marketing, in my opinion. Whereas, before I felt like when all the now Legends stuff was going down, it wasn't essential. It was just like expanding on things as opposed to really being crucial to understand the extent of the primary films. So
yeah, it's Yeah, like I remember back in the day, I used to argue with people that films need to be self-contained, and that's why I hate things like Lady in the Water or like The Happening, because you don't understand like the mood ring in The Happening unless you read up that it's supposed to be a reflection that he's a good person. I'm like, that makes it a bad movie because nothing in the movie confirms that. And people be like, oh no, you just have to research it. I'm like, no, say it in the movie. And here I am 10 years later.
There's been some criticism about The Lighthouse too.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, dude, for the record, there's a lot of that in The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is a messy movie, but I love it. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
It is very pretty.
We
to look
put
at.
subtitles on like 5 minutes in, and the subtitles are in that broken English, and I was just like, I don't understand it still.
I love that idea, though. A Shakespeare movie with subtitles that translate it from Shakespeare into English.
Please, I'll watch.
That sounds amazing.
There are actually Star Wars Shakespeare-style books out.
Yes.
Have you guys seen any of these in stores? And they are pretty amusing, I must admit. It's written in that same sort of, older, extremely overdone language, which I appreciate the hell out of as I was glancing at them at the Barnes & Noble the other day. I thought they were fun.
I don't know if I ever buy one, but they are fun to just like read there in the shop for.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, just to peruse a bit. I just want to go back to one of the Bronco Juggalo talks.
Yeah, he's lighting up in the chat, man.
Oh, I know. He's out for blood, or he or she.
That's he.
But well, I guess it would be a juggalette if it was that. But I'm Randall from Clerks. Okay. Jedi is my favorite of the original series. I am in the minority about that. Everybody loves Empire because of the fact that it was so distinctively different. I admit that in Jedi, they go and they blow up another Death Star, and it's got a lot of Muppets and all this different stuff. And I mean, Empire may be the better movie in a lot of regards, but I preferred Jedi because of the feel-good aspect to it, and it wrapped up the trilogy very just satisfyingly. And my favorite of the prequel trilogy is obviously Sith. It wrapped up a trilogy very just concisely and in a satisfying fashion. This, especially for not just wrapping up a trilogy but 9 movies, this whole saga, I don't know. I mean, overall, I'm still processing certain aspects even after another viewing, but I didn't walk out satisfied. It felt disingenuous to a degree, if that makes sense.
Did this movie shift and have to suddenly be like the capstone of 3 trilogies? Like, at what point? I thought this was just supposed to be like the birth of Star Wars, like a new generation to go forward and start their own stories. Like, when did it become?
I love these new characters too. Yeah. I still, even if I didn't enjoy the way that they were written at times, I really dig Rey. I really dig Finn, even if I felt he was underserved a little bit. I dig Poe. I've read some of the expanded stuff that they've done, comic and, novel-wise with them. But for me, this is really compelling me. It's the Ben Solo story, and he, at the end of the day, is my favorite part of this new trilogy. I thought Adam Driver was that scene with him seeing his father, although some people have argued that it should have been Luke he was talking to. I don't know what you guys think about that.
No. But anytime Harrison shows up to play is always a good moment in my book.
Yeah. And I know it was fan servicey with him saying I know as he was trying to tell his dad he loved him and stuff, but that was the most emotional scene in the entire film for me, especially since I was not expecting it at all, because Harrison was on record for just not even wanting to come back for Force Awakens, let alone, for the conclusion of this
Money
trilogy.
does a lot of things. Fuego.
It most definitely does.
And I love Harrison, but he's had a couple of issues landing planes lately. He might have some bills he's got to pay.
Right,
so he might have to...
So to the thing that I've always complained about when people have really gotten their panties in a bunch about either 7 or 8 is wait. Just wait. So if there's one positive I'm going to jump on with Rise of Skywalker with regards to Rey, if she's a Mary Sue, then it fucking makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So in hindsight,
justified.
Right? So in hindsight, shouldn't Force Awakens be better now because we know that she's the heir?
Well, I'll say this: after watching Rise of Skywalker, Fuego, Rogue One looks a whole lot nicer now.
You see, that makes me happy that you're kind of coming around.
Rogue One's good, man.
Yeah,
I really dig Rogue One.
I do too. That last half, that little, like right once they get to that island,
tropical.
yeah, beach world. Once they get there, it's fucking awesome.
I just love that they committed to it being a legit suicide mission, because that was when I went into the theater. I didn't think they were gonna kill everybody. Right. I'm like, oh, they're not gonna. Felicity Jones, is that her name? I want to say.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but the fact that they killed everybody, I was like, okay, Disney, I'm kind of impressed that you did that, because that's really not your standard
What about
approach,
the subtle thing where Amidala, no, not Amidala. What the hell's his name? Jimmy Smits. What's his character name?
Baylor.
Yeah, where a little subtle thing where he's like, I have to go back to his home planet to do something, and it's like, oh, you're not gonna make it. Yeah. It's just a little subtle thing that they threw in there. It's like,
I don't know. We don't need to get a whole thing in.
Oh yeah, right. What are we here for?
Rogue One. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. We don't need to. I appreciate Rogue One more than I used to, because now I've seen an even more hacked to the bone, multiple cuts of a Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like there's. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I mean, I was just going to say the reason I used the term like disingenuous was because I felt like there was forced aspects about this, and the whole, I don't know, in my spoiler review with Cecil that's going to go up this weekend, I made the Everclear reference, trying to be everything to everyone, like that song, from So Much for the Afterglow, and it's like, and then you in turn don't really end up pleasing anybody, because they were trying to appease the people who were pissed about certain things, from this previous film with, Luke catching the saber, or with,
That was an awesome moment, for the record, when that hand just comes out.
I liked it too. And it made, and I didn't feel like that was a slight necessarily against Ryan's film, because Luke had an arc in The Last Jedi, and he did decide to actually force project himself or whatever that was, and he did actually help in the process when initially he didn't want to. So him having a change of heart as a Force ghost to try to give some inspiration to Rey and motivation and stuff, I don't know, I didn't see it as a slight, but they just really
I agree.
overstuffed
I was weird that so many
this,
people did. I agree. Go ahead though.
Yeah, they just really overstuffed the turkey in this with trying to pepper in references from every single previous film, all 8 previous films. I mean, we saw Porgs, we saw Ewoks. I mean, they did practically everything in this movie. And at that point, I was just like, it was almost like the equivalent of a greatest hits record as opposed to a fucking awesome new album by your favorite
while
band.
still introducing things too, where she's like, whoa, let's calm down with the new people.
Also, that dagger was completely 100% pointless. We could talk about the whole, like, oh, it's a dagger made 30 years ago with 5,000-year-old Sith runes on it, but that's its own plot hole. Let's just address the fact that it was pointless.
Dude, how many?
Because nothing happened on the
There's
Death
like
Star.
5 Chekhov gun things that Finn saying, I have something to tell you. You gotta shoot the gun! Shoot the gun! What is this? You can't just introduce something like that and leave it. There's that. There's the what the hell was that crowd of people by Palpatine?
That was like one of the weirdest and creepiest
was
things.
Was he in a stadium of other Palpatines or like?
Yeah, I thought they were all like maybe like Snoke clones. Like, I mean, maybe. I mean, not as bad as in Alien Resurrection, where they're all still in tubes and stuff when they're trying to clone Ripley. But I mean, just lots of failed attempts, so to speak, at trying to clone Snoke.
Their existence is to just sit there.
All those Star Destroyers. Oh, go ahead.
No, like their existence is just to sit in that gladiator coliseum and just wait like it's like Palpatine purgatory. They just sit there and we're gonna wait for something. It's just so weird.
I was really hoping they'd cut to an interior shot of some of those Star Destroyers, and they would just be more Snoke clones wearing those robes of the guys like the entire fleet is just being flown by Snoke clones. But yeah, it didn't do anything that fun, and they just had an army just lying around. I mean, just say you have the cloning technology from Camino, and you've got 500 million clone soldiers completely loyal to the Empire, ready to go.
And for as much as they do with Kylo and Rey, I really feel like it's not earned. As odd as that sounds. So like what?
Oh, they didn't.
What?
Oh, they didn't earn that kiss, that little smooch at the end?
As far as I'm concerned, no. Like
I don't feel like they did. Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like that was all Ryan stuff, because Ryan was the one who really introduced, more so than anything, that possible love thread between the two of them. So I mean, people can say JJ abandoned and course corrected so much, but he still maintained a lot of Last
That's
Jedi
some
plot
hardcore
too,
hard to get then, because right up.
Well, I think the point of doing it Last Jedi was for her to deny him at the end. She'd be like, "Look, I'm going to pull in," but then she rejects him, and
but then
also Luke Skywalker exploded. His lightsaber exploded. Why is it still usable in this movie? It cracked in half and the crystal exploded.
Well, I mean, I was reading this Mace Windu comic book the other day, and it was basically like his lightsaber gets destroyed by this protege of Grievous, and apparently Mace is able to just put it back together with his force power because of the fact that it's the force that's binding all of these metal pieces together. So I don't know, there's a lot that you're just supposed to accept at face value that is back in this movie, whether it's an emperor who referenced what Plagius or Plagueis or whatever, and that's why now you realize why that's JJ's favorite part of Revenge of the Sith, because he's like, ha ha ha, that's how I can justify a returned emperor, with giving zero to any explanation. And I think we even joked about that on the last episode of Show Business. We're like, how much are they really going to explain? And I think I was like, I don't think they're really going to explain anything. They're just going to be like,
watch it.
No, the emperor's back. Yeah, so I mean, lightsabers being back, characters being back, man, I don't know.
Yeah, how many people did they fake out killing in this movie?
Oh, that's chewing. So hold on, real quick. There was something Emily said that about the lightsaber. She's like, and for her to bury Anakin Skywalker in sand of all places, what a dick move. Knowing how much he hates sand.
And Luke hated living there too.
Right, yeah.
And Leia never lived there.
Yeah, and then she turns on the thing just to show I have a yellow lightsaber, and then not use it, just to show it's yellow.
Imagine if during the
just
fight
to sell more toys.
Yeah.
Like it's instead of her doing like the moment where she's like, I've got Luke's saber, I got Leia's saber. Remember, she was just like, okay, well, here's my saber. It's like this big old double-bladed thing. Like that would have been so cool.
Yep.
But no.
Yeah.
Also, why does the Emperor? He got beat by Force lightning getting reflected back in his face once back against Mace Windu.
I was going to say that.
Right? Thank you. Like, how do you not learn your lesson?
But Mace Windu doesn't have the strength of him. He got beat by a younger version of his blood.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, Rey had the strength of all the Jedis.
Right.
So,
Jedi plus Palpatine.
All the Sith versus all the Jedis. And I did dig that scene with hearing all the voices, hearing Liam, hearing, Ewan McGregor, hearing Yoda, hearing, Samuel L. Jackson, and all. I mean, it was a cool cacophony. It was obviously a callback to, some of those weird dreamy type sequences in Force Awakens, but
no, it's strange. I want to like this movie. I really do. I would like a Rogue One to this movie. Like I'd like an 8.5, if you will. Like I don't know, like
as a fan of Kingdom Hearts, I need to tell you right now, it's really dangerous territory when you go and make a sequel that's like something 0.5. You're just
okay.
You got to be careful. But keep going.
Obligatory Lindsey video game reference.
I like that you got that as a video game. Good job.
I don't know. Spider-Man 2.5 is even better, where they add in those extra 12 minutes or whatever it is to Raimi's best Spider-Man movie. Sometimes it works, you know. Aliens director's cut, Terminator 2 director's cut. I mean, sometimes it works, but it's not always the case.
Fair enough.
So I never fell to the bait of all the spoilers that were being clickbaited to hell, and how many endings there were, and this, that, the other. If that is indeed true, do you think there's a solid movie, like a solid start to finish that's cohesive out there?
At one point, probably, but whether it was JJ's decision or people higher up that made them, nope, you got to curtail to Reddit. Nope, this isn't what Reddit would want. And that's how the movie got so convoluted with like the dagger, that you need to like look at the remains of the Death Star from the right angle in order to know where you're supposed to go. But then going to the Death Star was pointless because they just got the thing they got from the Death Star from somewhere else.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen with a solid script. That happens when you're mixing ideas from different versions.
And how did they know to, like, how did they know that the second Death Star would be on the ground? Like, the timing doesn't make sense because it was the daggers from like a certain time period that the Death Star would not be on the ground.
Right.
If the timing of this would the dagger anticipate where it was going to be? Like,
it's a 30-year-old dagger with 5,000-year-old runes on it.
Well, I mean, Qui-Gon, for instance, in like some of the expanded material, Qui-Gon is like fascinated by the Jedi prophecies, and you know, Yoda tells him countless times in some of these novels, he's like, no, by studying all of this stuff, you know, you're just, I mean, none of it is set in stone. It's just predictionary and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's silly ways where you can kind of try to explain and justify certain plot conveniences, and it's you're like, oh, Force, or you know, whatever, you know, so to speak. But yeah, there's just a lot of very guys. Sure enough, I mean, let's just continue moving it forward. But
well, if there was less, if like the movie worked better, I wouldn't care that they did a fake out death on Chewie than to fake out death on 3PO.
3PO,
yeah. Like if the story was stronger, if it felt like it was going somewhere, if it felt like any of, if they weren't so abusive to characters like Rose, while also like very awkwardly putting Leia in. Like I still contend this movie should have opened on Leia's.
Oh,
I thought it was better than it could have been. I was really worried, but it was still very awkward. It was very obvious the lines were all. The dialogue was written around footage that they had.
Yes, it was always
Mm.
trust a droid or never. That line, it felt like, oh, they wrote around that line. That is weird. Yeah, she should have died a lot. I mean, with all due respect.
Yeah, they still handled it better than I was anticipating. Though they wove it in decently, you know. It wasn't like train wreck status, you know. And I did really enjoy the scene with, you know, Kylo getting healed and her dying and all that other stuff. Although, you know, everyone is like, I've never seen a Jedi do that before, and it's like, well,
Baby
you know,
Yoda did.
It's been in some of the he did, you know, and that's why
they released it on Wednesday.
Speculating, so you would know, and it's also been in like some of the novels and whatnot, that sort of force healing power,
and plus,
just once again, conveniences, man.
Every single installment of Star Wars has introduced something new about the Force, so. There's the new one for this one. You could heal people, even though it's not technically introducing.
And I liked it. Like, you know, they're very. I've always wanted Jedis to throw the lightsabers away and play with the Force powers more. Like, if I was put in charge of this trilogy, you would have like a dude who never touched a lightsaber in his life because he can just throw things at people without even thinking about it. You just have to deal with you have to fight him through the Force, not through lightsabers. So I like that they explored all that, but I wanted it to mean more in the end. Like maybe use the healing power to rejuvenate Palpatine, and then
Ben,
when he's young, like he sees or
you Romeo and Julieted, like what why not what and couldn't we just have like 13 seconds of Palpatine from episode 3? Like, why did we have to get uber serious Palpatine? Like, I just wanted a little bit of camp from him, just a line or two.
That is when the Emperor's best, when he's
Yeah,
camping.
I get it. It's post 5 and 6 Palpatine, but
And actually, that crane thing he's on, that's a callback to... I had a couple of random Star Wars Tales of the Jedi comics growing up, and one of them had a Sith bad guy who had like an arm thing like that supporting him because he was like 5,000 years old and his bones didn't work anymore, and the Jedi cut the arm and his body just collapsed in on itself because he had no bones. I'm like, that's a cool callback. I like that you did that. But also, like, me and like only 2 other people are gonna get that.
Yeah, so. It's strange. Usually movies I remember like the middle chunk, and that's the part of the movie of this movie that I'm like just so. Maybe because I keep falling asleep on it. I don't.
Oh no, it was boring. It was boring. Yeah. The middle of this film just did not do it for me. It wasn't until we got back to like more of a just eminent aspect of conflict, and just foreboding. And of course, we have to have another big space battle at the end. And I mean, mobilization of everybody and whatnot. And like, is it going to happen? And I don't know. Lando was fun being back in this. That definitely brought a smile to my face. Although I must admit, the most prequel-y era, aside from our casino playing from the previous one, was when they were at that music festival thing. Yeah. I was just like, man, am I back in the prequels? What is going on here?
This was a little weird. Rough. That was very weird. And the timing of it, too, because 3PO says, oh, it's a celebration of 42 years. And I'm like, oh, what a coincidence.
42 years before.
I honestly, they should have just cut that whole planet, and they should have just gone straight to the planet where, like, they sit, like, the First Order are just kicking indoors, and it's all World War II Germany style. Like, that was dope. I liked that planet. They should have gotten there faster. And the only reason they went to the other planet was to get the dagger. That didn't ultimately mean anything. And then the movie just forgets about. And sorry.
Well, yeah, and Hux being I
liked that.
Really?
That was cute.
Another thing that I felt like was just unearned. Like, yeah, okay. I don't want you to win. I just want him to lose.
Exactly. I love that. That was so cute.
Yeah, all right.
Well, like Hux is such a self-absorbed character. It makes sense that he doesn't care who wins anymore. He just wants Kylo to be.
But the reveal was a little.
Agreed.
Just.
Agreed. Like, he should have done another thing after that. He shouldn't have been immediately.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Just what? Oh.
It was obviously done for like humorous effect, and they're just like, boom, you're done, But I don't know, his character became so comical in Last Jedi, which I didn't personally like. That was one of Rian Johnson's choices I was not fond of.
Yeah, there's an inverse there. He got kind of like in episode 7. I thought like there was something really special about him there. Their back and forth was really neat, and then it kind of dissipated in set 8, and then 9. I don't know. It's kind of like the inverse of Rose, the way she kind of got introduced and just disintegrated.
And there's so many new characters who were introduced that could have just been Rose, like Hobbit from Lord of the Rings. All of his lines.
Could have from Lost. Rose. Yeah. Charlie from Lost.
Damn.
And apparently he was only in this movie because he won some bet with JJ over like some football game or something, and so now JJ had to put him in a Star Wars movie.
Yo, JJ cast a lot of his friends in this movie.
Yeah, which is fine. That's totally. I love how James Gunn always uses like his brother and Nathan Fillion. That's awesome. But
and like Rooker and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael Rooker too. Yeah, gotta show Rooker respect. And Elizabeth Banks. How many of his stuff is she in? Like
who? What?
Well, I guess
it was Slither, and then
you're talking about James Gunn.
Although he just produced it and co-wrote the script, but
okay, so maybe not so much, but she's been in a few.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
it's so weirdly empty feeling, this movie. You just like it, at least for me, like I just don't feel it.
Dude, it's a joke. Granted, I've been like really head sick and NyQuil'd out, but. Like the running gag in the house has been, if you need to fall asleep, put the Uncle copy of Star Wars on, and it never fails. I get past the Chewie fake out death, and then I wake up for credits, and I'm like, what? Why does this keep happening? It's like there's a whatever those watch things where they fucking hypnotize you.
Oh, the
Yeah, just like. But I can't properly sit through it a second time. I have granted I haven't left the house. Might be a different experience in a theater, but there's nothing about the middle that sticks out, and I could really tell you about. There's things that are neat. There's things I could point to and say, oh, why not more of this, and what's the deal with that? But for the most part, it's just questions, and this is neat, but.
Well, let's do something for fun then. What's something you guys like? A moment that you really is there like a moment in this movie you guys did really like that we haven't mentioned yet?
Wedge.
Yeah, that was cute. Wedge shut up for a second. Yeah, that
for
was
like
fun.
5 seconds.
And that's all it needed to be. It just needed to like, hey, that was Wedge. Like that, you didn't need more.
And John Williams was in it too.
Oh wait,
was he?
Yeah.
Oh, he was a pilot. That's right.
Yeah.
Always watch the Star Wars pilots. They're fun cameos. That does happen a lot. Like in Mandalorian, when the X-wing pilots were like the 3 directors of Mandalorian episodes: Dave Filoni, what's her name, and Jon Favreau. So that was kind of fun.
Oh.
I really liked when the. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When the Emperor. I'm looking up a thought. I will.
Well, when the Emperor just shoots all his lightning up in the sky, that was
a cool.
Destroying ships with his.
That was pretty cool.
Very good sound moment. That like
yes.
Classic Star Wars, giving you some Dolby surround. That was a really neat experience. That when he bolts the thunder into the sky, lightning into the sky. Again, but that army of ships, what? How did they get made and?
Why do
they all have Death Star, like the destruction capabilities too. Each of them.
Yeah. That makes me think of like if there's like that has to be a content. Like you only do that through contempt, right? Contempt for your audience. Like people hated more Death Star in Force Awakens, and now there's the most Death Stars ever in this movie.
Well, they're the Death Star lasers on a ton of ships. What are they called?
Yeah.
Destroyers, Star Destroyers. Yeah,
Exactly.
now they're literally Star Destroyers. But like, if you had that many on standby, why are you cutting out a whole of a planet to like? You would think, like, the constructor in me, which isn't anything. If you're building something like that on ships, at the same time as you're doing this planet cutout, why are you wasting your time on the planet cutout if you could have it mobile on ships and
so here I just googled this real quickly. It took 20 years to build Starkiller Base.
Mm-hmm.
So like the entire time you're building Starkiller Base, you just have like
an
those
army.
20 years. You just have like like an ace in your hole. Like, oh, I'm just gonna have all these other ones that can also do that. Like, how does he have the money?
Do you know what? And
like, I get it.
And
he's
the other thing, like Snoke's, like the Snoke's in a jar. What would have been neat was have Snoke show up and like have Ben kill him again, and you're like, wait, what the hell's going on here? Why is Snoke back? Like just instead of just showing us that Snoke's a thing in a jar that like clones, like you could have given us a little bit of a moment, like, wait, what? I thought he was dead.
No, again, all the Star Destroyers just being flown by Snokes. So like when they land the ship to try and do the land attack, like all those soldiers then have to fight off Snoke clones who are shooting lightning at them while they're shooting laser bolts at them.
That could have been dope. Yeah.
And then you have Snoke's like flying TIE fighters and stuff like that. You have Andy Serkis playing a million parts.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest aspect to all of this in cohesion, in my estimation, is the fact that we had 3 different directors initially. We probably didn't have as much conference amongst all of them in the fact that, JJ put these ideas forward and then Ryan, he relegated them or just threw them out entirely. And then in turn, JJ was like, well, this is what I would have done if I had control of the entire trilogy. And just that lack of kind of an actual plan from Kathleen Kennedy is one of the biggest things that a lot of Star Wars fans are criticizing this new trilogy about, is that, at least George had like a game plan and an idea for all three of these
Did he,
films
though?
in the prequels, you know, and there was some sort of just continuity in that regard. These three films were kind of all over the place. I mean, I can feel more of a similar vibe in both of JJ's films, obviously, but I mean, character motivations are a little bit different amongst the three films, and it's not so much like an arc of natural, understandable change. It's jagged, it's despondent, it's all over the place in a lot of regards.
The end of Last Hope, excuse me, the end of Last Jedi is, you know, that anybody, there's hope, you know, for rebellion, and anybody, the kid looking to the sky, it's all about everybody else, and then boom, we start off Rise of Skywalker, and same old shit, regular people, never mind, it's no kids, just fuck it.
Yeah,
we're just like, wait, what?
Because she's a Palpatine.
Yeah. Although I've seen a lot of criticism about that from people, and I don't know if it's necessarily coming from the right thought process, because of the fact that they're like, well, the great message about The Last Jedi is that anybody could wield the Force, and that's been the case throughout the entirety of Star Wars. They pick younglings from all over the galaxy that are Force sensitive and have this possibility to be trained. It doesn't mean that every single person, you know, becomes a Jedi who has those sort of powers and that prowess and whatnot. So I feel like people are just like reading a little too much into the whole nobody versus royalty aspect that Ryan was a little heavy-handed with in his message, because you've had Jedis from all walks of life, genders, races, you know, species, whatever, you know, I mean, so that's where I take exception to some of the criticism.
That was kind of a thing, that's kind of been a thing, like, if I could say there's one thing that's fluid about the entire franchise is these people that come from nothing that end up having great power. Anakin was a slave and ends up being Darth Vader. Rey, Luke, you know, over on Tatooine becomes this big
poor farmer.
And Rey is this fucking garbage collector and ends up being the anti-Palpatine. So, you know, there's something fluid there with that, where, you know, there's three separate trilogies about these people that come from nothing and end up being a big deal, whether or not that's a good or bad side of the Force is the difference. But I would say that's fluid.
And I guess the argument well, I guess the argument, though, is because of the fact that they all became the most powerful because of their lineage, and that's where people, you know, just have gripes, or at least those who like the message of The Last Jedi. So,
well, so this is actually really amusing to me. So, I'm not a huge fan of, in The Last Jedi, the moment when Rose stops Finn from sacrificing herself. Like, I get it. Like, that is a good message. Defend what you love. Don't fight what you hate. I do like that. I wish it was accomplished in a different method. But what's really amusing to me is now in Rise of Skywalker, you once again have Finn about to do like a really big self-sacrificing moment to blow up the ship that he's standing on. And there's that moment where Rose sees him about to go and do it, and instead of Rose going, "No, you still haven't learned my lesson," she's just like, "Do what you got to do."
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, well, they threw that whole love story out the window, right?
Yeah. Oh my God! Like how? Okay, so yeah. Rose he can't have Rose. He can't have Rey. He can't have Lando's daughter. Can someone just have sex with Finn? Like if Poe can't do it, can just somebody throw him a bone?
Yeah. So there's that other bit of news that clickbaity.
Oh yeah, we've been ranting. Let us have something solid.
Is it solid? I don't know. So the big clickbait news is Disney force feeding a blink and you miss it lesbian kiss that's been cut out of the India version.
People were worried that they did it because China would want to cut it, but apparently China didn't cut it because, you know, again, China just doesn't care about Star Wars. It's kind of funny how they don't. But it was cut for Singapore. So it might not have been cut for China, but it was cut for some foreign stuff. So, yeah, you can say it was, yeah.
So like you can appease people by showing it just very quickly, but you're not going to implement it as like a legitimate plot point with Poe and Finn, even if everybody has just argued constantly about that being the case.
Tell you.
How many times has Disney's done this? Like they did it with Beauty and the Beast too. Like, oh, we have a gay character in Beauty and the Beast, and then it's just two dudes dancing for like a half second. Like Disney will show you respect for showing representation when you actually do representation, not when you do something for 2.6 seconds and then ask us to respect you for the thing that you did for 2.6 seconds.
And I didn't recognize
that seems disrespectful.
It is, yeah. Because it's a blatant attempt to capitalize on it in order to get butts and seats.
What, is she a bi character? Because she's kind of flirtatious with Chewie in episode 7.
Oh, who's flirty with Chewie?
The woman who is in the kiss is like she's the one who's working on Chewie at the base in episode 7.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
good cut there, sir. Well done. Okay.
I mean, it's not that it's a bad thing. Just what? You're just gonna have people kiss just because? Like, what the fuck?
She's a lesbian fur. The first time on show business the words lesbian furry have been said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, cool. What I don't get is people making a big deal of it. One way or another, it's this little thing. Which, all right, so what? What are we making a big deal about it for? Yeah, it sucks that some places aren't progressive enough to have two girls kiss in their fiction. But this is America, and
Wouldn't it have been great if like the reason why Rey can't be with Finn is because Rey's a lesbian and she's like having a thing with Rose? That would have been like the ultimate.
Oh, you mean like Jesus in a Netflix thing that apparently.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's stuff on Pornhub that is already being put together in that regard, sir. So.
There, as we speak, trending on Twitter is cancel Netflix, and it's because Netflix released some comic thing about Jesus as gay, and people are quite upset.
I did hear about this.
Yeah, I did not, but I see it trending on Twitter right now. It looks like CP already.
Yeah, I was like, why is it cancel Netflix? And I haven't gotten a solid response.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just cancel Netflix? I mean, the O isn't, unless I'm trying to figure out like the O. Sometimes you have typing mistakes, but the O, it's in a spot where it doesn't make sense.
They're canceling Netflix in Italy. It's Cancilio Netflix.
Somebody said it's an Irish Netflix.
Well, so guys, I did find that JJ quote that I was paraphrasing earlier, and this was basically his just, I don't know, response to the fact that a lot of Star Wars fans have been critical of some of the things that he did, the proverbial overstuffing of the turkey with fan service and trying to appease everybody and all that different stuff. And his exact quote was, "We live in a moment where everything seems to immediately default to outrage." So, and it does epitomize that, because I still remember when I got out of the film on Thursday night, I had just filmed my review and I just did a rapid spoiler-free just initial reaction sort of thing, because I just needed to process so much of what I had watched and my mixed feelings about it. And yet there is this live streaming guy, I don't even remember the name of his channel, I'd never seen him before, but he had a large chunk of people on there. It was like a few thousand, and he was just, it was definitely not for children with some of the language that this guy was using. And he was just like, fuck this movie, blah, blah, blah. This, don't even go spend your money. Listen to my opinion about it as opposed to going and watching it and forming your own opinion about it. And I didn't hate this movie, I had a lot of problems with it, but I did find a lot of enjoyment. That's why by the end of it, they had somehow started to win me back over. And I was just like, they're getting me with these nostalgia feels. They're doing what they intended upon. And yet, outrage is all too often in this sort of culture where, not only is nerddom, I feel like there is an essence where those of us who were so much more into it back before it was as mainstream as so many of these properties have become in the last decade or so, that we feel, kind of betrayed to a degree when it doesn't adhere to it. It's like the people who are like, I was punk rock before punk rock was punk rock sort of thing. And it's like, this was mine before everybody else jumped on the bandwagon.
Tell him about the Deftones.
When it... I haven't liked them much since White Pony.
I guess man, really?
Subtitle is okay. But I mean, I just think of the second album, Around the Fur, and them standing on all the shark cages, and it's a great summer. Great music video. Yeah, shove it. So good. But yeah, there's almost like kind of an ownership aspect to a lot of these properties, which makes people even more angry when they don't continue along the course that they would prefer. And so, I mean, JJ makes a good point, but in the same right, it's, I don't know, he is trying to cover his ass a little bit.
Yeah. I don't like, I'm wondering if I mean, you could see it, that the complaints, the backlash about Last Jedi had an influence. There's no way that what we saw on the internet for Last Jedi, there's no way that it didn't have something to do with what we got with Rise of Skywalker. And
yeah, hence Lindsey's Reddit reference, man, because that's like I've watched a lot of reviews on this movie at this particular point, both spoiler and non-spoiler, and a lot of people continue coming back to the fact that they're like, yeah, this script feels like it was written by people who went, JJ and his co-writer, whose name eludes me, they went on Reddit and they took notes of all the different various things that pissed people off about the previous film and tried to either course correct, smooth things over, so to speak, and that's essentially what this film did, and that's where you get some of that disingenuousness that I mentioned, and just the lack of just capable and just understandable narrative flow, and the peaks and valleys aspect that we got instead. So,
JJ is a very competent director. He really is. He's just not.
Yeah.
It's just I feel like he needs a co-director there, because the story is always JJ's weak point. He works great with actors. He always gets interesting performances out of people. His movies are always very fast paced. They're rarely boring, which is one of the
I was just gonna say Force Awakens cruises, and this is just like what are we doing?
It stagnates. It loses because it doesn't have a clear, even though it's arguably like the most clearly directed, and it has the most clear direction. Like, they got to get to Exegol. But
testicle?
How do you get to Exegol is so... Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I kept calling it testicle because it's really close.
Test Exegol. But the way they get there is so convoluted and backwards. You just have to do all these seemingly unnecessary steps, and you keep faking these characters' deaths along the way just to bring them back. And why is this movie like this?
Also,
why is the fact that Lando's daughter is in this movie not addressed in canon? I don't understand.
Why?
Oh, that's because they want you to buy the novel in the next 2 months or whatever. Yeah.
But also, why the ticking clock element? Why? What's the rush? What are we doing? Why is this suddenly a rush? What's going on here?
Exactly. Yeah. Why is now the moment that the Emperor is making this movie? I understand Luke is dead, but how long it's been a little bit of time in between the movies? It feels like almost a year has passed between Last Jedi and this. Am I wrong? Do we have a timetable?
In canon or life? Because life, it's been 2 years.
In canon. Oh. No, it's been 2 months since Last Jedi, I know, but it feels like 5 years.
I don't think it's ever mentioned directly in the film. You would definitely have to go on Wikipedia to get some specifics about all of this convolution. So
I'll look that up right now, actually. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, because... the quote starts with the dead speak. The crawl starts with the dead speak, and I remember thinking, whoa, this is right off the bat. I was like, oh boy.
I mean, it was a callback to Phantom Menace when the very first line of the crawl is something about trade war negotiations, and you're like, where's this going? And then.
Yeah,
and the crawl references every previous saga film's title at one particular point or
does
another,
it?
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Huh.
I think it does.
I've been awake 6 times for it. You'd think I'd remember some of it, but
and it's supposedly it's about a year. It's a loose year. Like it looks like it's like the same way that Marvel's like, when did Thanos happen? Oh, a couple years ago. When did Captain America get unfrozen? Oh, a couple years ago. How long has it been in between movies? Oh, about a year. Like,
Yeah.
Grain of salt year.
Yeah. I don't like what. So Luke dying, like, and that's you coming to that conclusion, right? It's not like they were like, okay, Luke's dead, so now we
right
now the floor is ours. Like what?
I mean, that would make sense to me. That like, yeah, Luke's dead. Like, let's move. Let's try and take advantage. But I have nothing in the canon confirms that. And like, doesn't the last movie end? Yeah, Last Jedi ends with Kylo being like, let's burn the Sith, let's burn the Jedi. So what if this movie opens with just Kylo's going all around the galaxy, like burning down Jedi temples and anything Sith related, and then he finds the Wayfinder, so he goes off into the far reaches and he finds Exegol, and then he finds the Emperor. You don't even need the dead speak thing. He just finds him, because like, that'd be interesting. Like, oh, you're building an army out here?
There was a moment.
Like, hey, I want that army.
There was a moment for a split second where I thought they were going to do the world against the Emperor, like the galaxy against the Emperor. When the people in the New Order, the First Order, when they were having last order, the Final Order, whatever the shit the fuck, when they were having a discussion about what he has to offer, and they're like, don't we want to talk about what that's going to cost and he's like, well, it'll increase our army 10,000 fold. And you're just like, yeah, what cost? And it's just like, ooh, rebel. Please, this would be neat. This would be an interesting little Mexican standoff with everybody that's been against each other. But, that's another idea. That
Also, wouldn't it be interesting if they had all these ships, but they didn't have people to fly them? So
Snokes
in the
a jar of Snokes.
Yeah, well, you're not even doing that, but like, so like in the final battle, it's like, oh, we need to destroy the array so the ships can't communicate, so they can't leave the planet, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but sure.
Yeah.
But whatever, sure, let's go with that. Like, well, if they didn't have enough people to man all those ships, that suddenly makes sense, because all the ships are flying by remote. It would make sense that you need these complicated communications arrays that could be disrupted. But again, you never bring that up.
Pete in the chat says the movie's plot was taken straight from Dark Empire and Operation Shadowhand, which, Fuego, are you familiar with those? I'm not.
Yeah.
Second one, I am not. Dark Empire was where Luke was turned to the dark side. Palpatine had been cloned quite a bit. I mean, this is one thing that I've had like arguments about, with like a couple of my friends who are very into Star Wars as well, is whether this was in fact the original Palpatine or whether this was a clone Palpatine. I think this was in fact the original Palpatine, and through some whatever Sith, stuff that was hinted at in that one particular scene, how does he survive a blowing up Death Star? If the Death Star crashed down, the weird remnants of it on that planet, I guess, then maybe, it wasn't completely blown to bits, and there was stuff that, fell back down on that moon of Endor or whatever. But, the second one I have not particularly read, so I can't say that I know anything about that. But,
well,
I was just looking timeline-wise, though, guys, and at least on Wikipedia, which is a very reputable source, and they basically, just like, BC and AD, and they base everything before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin, and so that's the fight in the first film where they blew up the original Death Star, and it says here that this film takes place 8 months after The Last Jedi, so...
Okay.
Yeah, so that is, obviously in the outer regions, the Emperor was amassing this crazy fleet. Perhaps he was only having correspondence with Richard, is it Richard E. Grant? Was that the name of that actor?
Yes, that is the actor. He was quite good.
Yeah.
I always remember him with the what's his line in Transformers? My face is my ID or whatever. Like, he's such a good actor. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but he was like more of the, I don't know. This is one thing that I did like about The Force Awakens, and you mentioned it a little earlier, Lindsey, if I'm not mistaken, it was either you or CP, but bottom line, just the whole conflict of ideology that we had, especially in A New Hope and then a little bit in Empire and stuff, between Vader and those other Imperial guys was, the old ways of the Sith, and, your crazy religion is dead, and so on and so forth. And the fact that Kylo was a resubscriber to that, him and Domhnall Gleeson's character, whose name eludes me at this particular point, that like they're they're just, hatred for each other and like healthy rivalry of sorts and just differing ideology. I was actually kind of disappointed to see a disregard for that. And that's kind of what I thought the Grant character was shifting in and epitomizing a little bit, was that more old school imperial mentality that was not in line with the Sith. But then it's kind of contradicted. But then, in fact, it's kind of contradicted a little bit with the fact that he's been in correspondence with the Emperor for a while. So I don't.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, he's the one who's trying to convince them all to fall in line.
Didn't he have some line though of like, "I've been serving you since the last war," or "I've been serving you the old 30 years," or something like that?
Yeah. So he was I don't know, a low level, whatever the hell. Now George Lucas can go back and digitally place him into Jedi or something.
They're just gonna remove Grand Moff Tarkin. It's just gonna be
he's a lower level.
Rogue One and...
He's just at the table when that guy gets choked. It's him. So there was something about Palpatine that I wanted to bring up and I totally forgot now, and now I feel like an idiot.
What happened to his fingers?
Oh, right. So there's a line that he says that is exactly the line that he gives to Anakin when Anakin asks him about, fighting death, and he gives him the what the hell's his name? Plagueis, Darth Plagueis the Wise. And some people find the path to the dark side to be unnatural or so unnatural. Yeah. So he, like line for line, he used that quote from episode 3, and I was just like, okay, it's interesting, but why here?
I think that was the extent of the justification. We were speculating, like, what are they going to give us for the fact that he is still alive somehow? And I think he was just pretty much on like life support, hence that Tales of the Jedi stuff Lindsey was referencing with all the tubes in the back of him and stuff. I don't think that was a cloned emperor. I really don't. And and so that would in fact be different than Dark Empire, with it being the original emperor as opposed to a cloned version. It
would have been neat to have a couple of Boba Fett's. I mean, if you're gonna have jars of Snokes, I mean, some stray.
Get jars of Fett.
Yeah, just a couple of stray Commander Cody's. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that'd be cool.
I mean, that guy's still around.
Speculating they're saving him. They're all saving him for the Mandalorian, man. There's still all that speculation that it was him.
He's in Aquaman. The guy's still acting.
Yeah, but I know in Battlefront they had somebody had stolen his armor. So who the hell knows at this particular point?
So, here's one thing that keeps amusing me as well. We're kind of on the subject of all this. So the Emperor is Anakin's dad. Like, whether it biologically or not, he used the Force to impregnate Shmi Skywalker.
Are we sure of that?
I mean, kind of, sort of. Like, there was like this comic that came out that, like,
you guys with these books.
I mean, I haven't read it. I've just seen it being passed around online, and the discussion around it has reached the point where the writer of the comic has responded to be like, "Oh no, that's not what's happening." I mean, it's literally happening on the page, but what you're seeing and hearing isn't what's happening, people. So don't trust your eyes.
And that was a Dark Horse comic, so that's no longer in canon, if I'm not mistaken. But the fact that they can cherry pick all these ideas and.
But I mean, if we go with that theory that Plagueis did. Or Palpatine did give birth in some way to Anakin, that means that Rey and Kylo are related.
Well, I mean, how Star Wars of it then? Luke and Leia.
So they're like kissing cousins or something. And
again, do you want to tell me something new? Because that's so 1977.
Right.
Jedi inbreeding. Yeah, well, actually, yes, exactly.
Yeah, Luke and Leia, they
brother
kissed.
And sister kissing. I mean, twins are.
And Luke kind of taunted about it too. He was all like, "Yeah, take that, Han."
One of Leia's final thought was, "I kissed my brother once."
Yeah. That never really.
Hey, but Chewie got his medal at least.
Chewie got his medal, and Chewie losing his shit when was it Leia dying? Like, Like finally,
That was a good scene.
Like, fuck yeah, you saw a dog person give some real good emotion. It's just like, yeah, everybody he knows is dying. That's the right response. That's really cool to see that. There's a bunch of moments in this
really
movie where it's like, you have pieces. Where's the rest?
And I would have loved this. Received a medal in the comic books, but I guess for those who don't read all of this expanded silliness that they have,
Right.
Just double down. It makes me wonder if JJ's even like read or completely aware. I'm sure he has. Stephen King has somebody, this woman named Robert Firth, who basically, or Robin Firth, I should specify, who keeps just consideration of all of his intertwining universe stuff with the Dark Tower and all of his other corresponding books, because it's almost like too much for him to even remember at his age. And so, yeah, it makes me wonder if they have similar, people assisting with the process there that are like ghost writers to a degree or whatever.
And if Kathleen Kennedy is that for Star Wars, then
more power.
Oh, Dave Filoni's probably should be the guy, right? Shouldn't Dave Filoni be the Kathleen Kennedy if that's what we're gonna try to Marvel this?
Well, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy was a novitiate of Lucas.
Yeah, back to the 80s, right? Yeah.
Yeah, going way back. True. Yeah, Indiana Jones films and stuff. Right. I mean, she's been with Lucas for a while.
But before Mandalorian, Dave Filoni's association with Star Wars was the Clone Wars movie.
Oh, the series, the series as well.
Yeah, but also the series, and then Rebels too. He also did. Rebels,
was he involved? I thought it was just the movie. He was involved with the shows too. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he was the show.
It's my understanding that as of the 21st century, he's been like the second to George Lucas as far as lore is concerned.
Yeah, he's the heir apparent. A lot of people think he's going to step in if Kathleen decides to peace out, at her age. So,
gotcha.
We shall see.
Yeah. How old is Kathleen? I guess she's been from the 80s. She has to be getting up there then.
Yeah.
I think she's in her 50s.
That young?
60s,
really? Yeah, I would.
66.
Yeah.
66.
Okay, yeah. So she's getting up there in years.
Well, our president's 73, so yeah, she's got time.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to see the Trump Star Wars movie.
You did. He's the emperor.
Oh boy.
The
emperor. So do we think that something's overall thoughts of this movie? Because I want to shift to Mandalorian because we're about 6 hours away from the season finale, but Rise of Skywalker, like what? Rise of Skywalker and the trilogy as a whole, like what?
It's Star Wars Suicide Squad, but it's also better than Suicide Squad, but only by the skin of its teeth.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm going to reiterate something that a very good friend of mine said when we walked out of The Force Awakens, 4 years ago now, right? Because that was 2015 when that came out.
Yeah.
He turned to me and he was like, it was kind of like Star Wars. And I think that's about right, actually. It felt in some ways like a fan film to a degree, but what else are you going to have at this particular point when George is no longer involved and it's other people doing it who grew up
decades
as fans of this IP?
Yes.
Yeah, over 40 years. So I guess everything will but yet I don't know, Mandalorian seems like it has come from a more genuine place in contrast. It really does to me. And that's why I actually had not watched that 7th episode. And then I came home after Rise of Skywalker and I filmed my review and I went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up on Friday and I watched that 7th episode and finally seeing Homie from Breaking Bad show up. And the fact that episode is also directed by Deborah Chow. She directed the 2 best episodes of the season, episode 3 and episode 7. Episode 3 being where the Mandalorians fought all the bounty hunters, and then this one. And I was like, I feel like Star Wars is just fine in the television realm for now. And, in a few years in 2022, if they continue that course for the next film, like they have tentatively announced that will be the next entry in whatever new trilogy, whether it's Old Republic, whatever it ends up being. Right. I'm perfectly content with what they're doing on the small screen, and I kind of prefer it. Deborah Chow is the one directing Obi-Wan, and she did the 2 best episodes of Mandalorian. So I'm I think it's going to be just fine.
We had a major death in episode 7 too. So
yeah, that one made me cry, actually, or at least a little misty-eyed.
I can't help but wonder.
I'm upset. He only said it once. He should have said it more than once in that episode. I'm so upset. Well, I didn't want
to. Yeah, because that was your guy, Lindsey. Yeah. I was here like, give me more.
I spent the entire episode being like, say it. He said it, but he never said it again, and then he just died. I wanted it to be his dying words, like, avenge us. I have spoken.
And yet that episode was kind of the culmination to a degree of what all the marketing campaigns and stuff, like actually getting the ragtag band together, as opposed to, oh, he meets this one person here, this one person there, one person there, like to finally assemble his crew without spoiling.
Yeah, we're getting warnings. Spoilers of we didn't warn spoilers for Mandalorian. Apologies. Yeah. Sorry.
It's a great show though. I can't wait for season 2. I love that it was released on a weekly basis. I like the character. I like the scope of it. I want more Star Wars like this.
Yeah.
At least for a minute. You know, like DC has struggled at the box office and with movies, but they've been knocking TV out of the park for a while. Maybe that's what Star Wars needs to do for a minute. You know, just own the TV realms for a while and then eventually start up a new movie thing.
Do you think they killed Baby Yoda in this episode?
If they do, I'm going to kill you because you put that thought in my head.
All right, so
I think from a marketing standpoint, there is no way in hell they kill Baby Yoda.
You work backwards.
They still, I mean, they're like just putting out the merchandise now.
So where is he then, is my question. Yeah, you did episode 9 without any sign of whatever he would have been. Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he's not an adult till he's 600, so he's still got a little ways to.
So he's off the grid somewhere, just chilling.
Yeah. He's gonna show up in episode 10.
and he's still like 25 years or something. It'll be 30 years after the original trilogy when we get this new one, more or less, or to some degree, or maybe it was 20. Hell, I'm trying to remember. But yeah, with the just slow aging aspect, I think he most definitely ends this season in the clutches of these former Imperials, and
okay.
Without spoiling anything, I mean, it turns into like kind of a chase, so to speak, and maybe the world gets a little bit bigger because of the fact that they did this on a smaller budget and it's been successful. Maybe they just second season do the Aliens Terminator 2 thing, make the scope bigger as far as production values, as far as just everything we get to see. I would be down for that. So
yeah, that'd be interesting. Do you think Baby Yoda's gonna kill anyone in this episode?
No, he's too forcey. I don't.
He's too Jedi. He doesn't have enough Sith in him.
Although I liked when he was choking. What is her name? Gina
Carano.
Gina Carano, something like that. Yeah. She's a babe too, I'm gonna say. Although she is built like a tank, as Lindsey said, like an episode or two ago, and I was like, yeah, she is. She's like kind of intimidating. My God.
Yeah, those arms, man. Like she'll throw me around for a change. That'd actually be kind of fun.
So rank the trilogies, guys.
Well, the 1, 3, 2. Like
just that easy, huh?
Original trilogy, sequel trilogy, prequels. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this discussion with Cecil in our spoilers review, and I've grown to appreciate the trilogies more. I guess I would probably still put the sequel trilogy ahead, but it's a little closer than you might expect, especially with as much as like I found Revenge of I like Revenge of the Sith quite a bit more actually than Rise of Skywalker. I really do. It's more satisfying to me.
Right.
And yeah, especially the last like 10-15 minutes of that, I felt like they actually stuck the landing there in contrast with this one, and like significantly better.
1 and 2 versus 7 and 8.
I'm one of the few people who dislikes 1 more than 2. People say Clones is the worst.
I'm right there with you. Clones is my least favorite Star Wars movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this isn't the worst Star Wars movie. It's the dumbest Star Wars movie, and
that's the worst of this trilogy.
Yeah.
It's the messiest. It's the most it's the most slapdash. But it's still very well made. The camera work is very interesting. You're not just doing shot reverse shot. They do some interesting things. There's just sadly doesn't add up to anything very substantive.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun with both 7 and 8. I enjoyed them quite a bit. And my thing was, if they stick the landing, it'll be my favorite trilogy. Because I'm not a big fan.
Even more so.
I'm not a big fan of Jedi.
Jedi's flawed, but yeah.
And here I am. I can't definitively say, oh yeah, the sequel trilogy is better than the original trilogy. And I thought they didn't stick the landing for me, which is so weird. Like I mean, shit. Episode, like you said, Fuego, they stuck the landing for Sith. Like, if there's a strong movie in the prequels, it's the third one, and I think if there's a weak one in the sequels, it's the third one. Mm-hmm. It's so odd, but I can't. This is 6 sessions, 5 sleeps, talking. So I need to watch it fully a second time before I can genuinely wrap my thoughts around it. But like me falling asleep 5 times, granted, me doped up on NyQuil may have something to do with it, but it's got to play into it, right? Like the fact that it's just losing me in the middle.
Let's put it like this. I was super hard on Force Awakens when it first came out. I was still too. Yeah. It's still stupidly flawed, I love that movie. But it's fun. There's a lot of good moments in it. It's funny. The cast is great. There's a lot to like in it. It's good.
That's my second favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and I saw it 4, maybe 5 times in theaters. I've seen Rise of Skywalker once, and I literally have no interest in ever seeing it again. I'm just not engaged by it. I've seen it all. I'm not going to find anything of further substance in it. At least it doesn't feel like it. Like Joker. If I watch Joker again, I know I'll appreciate it more. But it's just such a weird viewing experience. I don't want to watch it again, even though I just got a screener for it today. But Rise of Skywalker, I just don't care enough, and it's the first Star Wars movie I've ever just not cared enough to want to see again, and that's a weird sensation.
Yeah, I don't.
At least for me.
I mean,
I don't not want to see it. I mean, clearly, I keep trying to. So I want to understand why I do. Like I'm just in this like question mark. Like I'm just constantly like I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm in a similar state of question even after a second viewing, and yet I feel like it's more so less of an intrigue aspect and more of what Lindsey was saying, like an indifference to it, where I don't hate it, but I definitely don't love it. And I mean, I enjoyed aspects of it, but I don't know. It didn't really put forth any really intriguing questions to me, which the one thing, just to really briefly cycle back to Mandalorian, that I thought was intriguing, that the Werner Herzog character, where he was talking about this is mild spoiler, but it's not really a plot related thing. It's just more so an idea that was put forth that I found intriguing. He's later in the episode, he says to Mando and his little team of people, including Carl Weathers and whatnot, he's like, do you see how this entire galaxy is in disarray after the destruction of the Empire? We brought order. We made sure, this stuff, and it's kind of a big government crazy perspective of sorts. It's one of the more intriguing points that the show put forth, and like Mando has made me think about certain things and actually expanded my, intrigue and interest in certain Star Wars storytelling periods, and this one didn't.
Dude, there's no pressure on Mandalorian.
Rise didn't really do that.
There's no pressure on it. I think the hyper attention to all of these movies, 8 to 9 especially, the hyper attention, and with Solo tanking, I think they got too cautious. Any fans of sports know that zone defense in football only prevent defense, only prevents you from winning the game. And I think this was Star Wars playing Disney playing Star Wars prevent defense, and it just you were so busy trying to be careful that you did nothing. Meanwhile, there's this little series that you're not really if it succeeds or fails, it doesn't matter, and it's coming out quite nicely. Like, what a novel concept. Go back and watch Iron Man from 2008 and start with that and build from there, because here we are 11 years later, and there's a lot from that little movie.
I Am Iron Man, that was a huge callback in the highest grossing movie of the year. Caleb
in the YouTube super chat, $5. Thank you. Thank
you, sir.
After JJ hit it out of the park with reinventing the Star Wars after JJ hit it out of the park with reinventing Star Trek and Star Wars, how do you think he would fare tackling the sci-fi classic Battlefield Earth?
Well, first of all, the first Battlefield Earth is untouchable. Like, you cannot improve upon that movie. What are you going to do? Take Dutch angle out of it? Are you crazy?
Just make sure you shoot it Dutch. Well, the tripod, one of the legs was broken. That's all.
It was a bipod.
What's so ironic about this question is that just last night, it was Christmas, and me and the lady were watching like Woodland Critter Christmas and Red Sleigh Down and Christmas in Canada.
I hate to tell you what we watched last night.
All kinds of South Park Christmas episodes. And then she had never seen Trapped in the Closet, and I showed her that episode of South Park, which deals very much with everything Scientologist, and it's unbelievably funny. I've actually only seen bits and pieces of Battlefield Earth. I have never put myself through the entirety of it. As far as JJ's Star Trek goes, I love the first one, but boy, did I have major problems with the second one, where he was basically lying to the press about Khan being in the movie. He lied on the press circuit because he was trying to keep the secret concealed. And yeah,
to a point.
This is the guy that created Lost, and listen, lots of flaws. I do not disagree, but the journey was fun. Listen, sure, the finish line wasn't there, but did we have fun on that run? The guy doesn't have foresight to see it through the end, but he knows how to market.
The mystery is what gets him into things, not the answers.
Yes.
And that's why the answers in Abrams things are always bad, but the mysteries are always intriguing. I'm more Fuego than CP when it comes to the JJ Star Wars. The first one's a lot of fun. I really do like the first one. The second one's Star Trek, Not crazy about Into Darkness, but I really like the third one that has nothing to do with JJ at all. Beyond. I really like. I think that's my favorite of the. Of those three, it's definitely the best.
And that was the one Simon Pegg co-wrote the script for and everything. And that one is a lot of fun.
I quite enjoy the new Star Treks, and a fan told me, if you like the new ones, do not watch the old ones because that is not Star Trek. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's of a different vibe. I mean, I'm a TNG guy at the end of the day. I love Star Trek The Next Generation and that crew and that cast. I watched the original show with my parents and whatnot, but I mean, TNG and DS9 and stuff. I don't know. I'm probably going to subscribe to CBS All Access so I can watch the Picard show. So I guess that says a lot. So.
Oh, and Deep Space Nine actor just passed away recently. I can't think of Odo. I can't remember the actor's name right at the top of my head right now, but rest in peace. You're a very talented individual, sir.
Dang.
Sorry to bring us down. Just wanted to do a quick shout out there.
Day after Christmas. Thanks.
I am Krampus. I ruined Christmas with the death of Star Trek actors.
So Caleb, again, $2 super chat. Thank you. Just hear me out. 3 words. Baby John Travolta.
If he's got those dreadlocks, man, bring it on. Why the hell?
Well, you got to bring back Forrest Whitaker too, and have him do the Rogue One voice. Lies, deception.
I wonder. You guys ever see? That Forrest Whitaker's so good in that movie. Junior, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
What?
Where he gives birth to a baby. It is like a scene where like a baby has Arnold Schwarzenegger's head. It's like.
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, it's in there, man. I went Baby John Travolta, but it's got like John Travolta's head on it, going like. That would be amazing.
And now I'm just thinking of Travolta in that Trapped in the Closet episode where he gets in the closet with Tom Cruise and he's like, I feel so safe. Oh my God.
And then who is it? Snoop Dogg? No, I'm trapped in the closet.
Oh no, it was R. Kelly who we
R. Kelly,
know is in some serious trouble at this particular point. But
yeah.
Ha.
But thank you again, Caleb.
Yes, thank you. I'll tell you this much. I think John Travolta will take that. He's had a year. He's had a decade. Oof.
Yeah.
Fanatic.
Fanatic.
Which of course somebody's bringing up the Fanatic in the chat. I see.
Man, I can't. His opening line is, "I can't talk long. I gotta poo." Wow.
Wait, what movie is that
That's
from?
The Fanatic.
It's from The Fanatic.
Written by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit.
And directed.
Yeah, excuse me. Written, directed, and produced by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit fame.
So much so that he writes a scene into the movie with Devon Sawa driving around with his son, and he turns up the Limp Bizkit. It's a new Limp Bizkit song because they had a new record out sometime around then. And then he's just like, "Yeah, I used to jam this when I was younger. Yeah, that's awesome."
Dude,
just sitting there like,
what's cringy?
You can't make that.
What's cringier is Devon Sawa did a tweet saying that I thought that would be neat for the movie, and they left it in, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here. There's no chance that you did that was spontaneous with it. It's not like it was handheld. Like, the camera was set. That was the only bit of dialogue in that scene. If it were a shot for just establishing purposes, you wouldn't have a mic on in there. So, I call bullshit, Mr. Sawa, but fine. But yes, if you haven't seen The Fanatic yet, Lindsey, pop some corn.
Oof.
Yeah, it's almost worth a viewing based on the Battlefield Earth kind of situation, as far as it's just such a hot mess train wreck of hilarious.
Travolta has he's got a lot of heavy misses now. Like, you talk about Battlefield Earth, Gotti. Oh,
yeah.
Boy, how does this guy have a career?
Because he's just so lovable. Like, you ever see Swordfish? I love him in that movie. He's so good in that movie.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, Pulp Fiction.
That's actually not bad.
Pulp Fiction, yeah.
That was 25 years ago, though. But
I mean, he looks great for his age, dude. Let's see. Just the day John Travolta is no longer with us, I will be sad.
Sure. Oh, so Caleb brings up the Fanatic is this decade's misery. I read it. I read an article, and it could have been an article, it could have been a tweet. My apologies to whoever originally said this. That Kathy Bates's character from Misery is a perfect encapsulation, a perfect descriptor of what the internet is for fiction these days. Because she hijacks the creator and she basically controls how things are because I'll have to get the article for Monday, but it.
Oh no, it makes total sense because it's like the epitome of toxic being taken to the most literal extreme you can imagine. Because she takes her favorite author when she finds him injured in a car accident, and after he is killed off, her beloved character, Misery, she's like, no, you're going to retcon that. You're going to write that she actually didn't die, and you're going to write a whole new book about this, and so on and so forth. It's like the kind of fans who are, having that petition that was circulating to remake The Last Jedi or the 7th season of Game of Thrones, or it's funny to me.
Yeah, it is. It's We shouldn't have. Please be sure to keep tuning in, but we shouldn't have as loud a voice as as I don't know, Hollywood's giving us credit for. But
I mean, for the record, I can get loud, guys. I'm an actor. I can project so
loud.
But
you I don't know, why.
You should never give in to you should never give in to the masses. You should never give in to the raving lunatics. You should never, and on both sides, whatever the issue is, you should never give in just because a bunch of people are yelling at you to give in. And Disney gave in here. They compromised. They sold out, and they just it's just sad. It's just really sad. And like, it's not the first time. Like what was it? Doctor Strange. They recast a Tibetan character to be an Irish woman because they wanted to sell more tickets in China. Like, it's. I mean,
it is so like it's strange. It is still a business in the end,
right.
which I don't know that, like, that's where we get to this weird point where you talk about stuff like Unplanned. You talk about stuff like Black Christmas. Is it really fiction's job to tell the world what we should be doing? I mean, if you want to sell your product on something that isn't consumable like that, then sure, that's your choice. I mean, I can sell charcoal sandwiches because I need the money, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Well, I mean, even to think about the fact that long before Marvel was, doing this whole thing with Disney, think about the fact that almost 20 years ago in 2001, Kevin Smith wrote a particular character called Holden McNeil telling Jay and Silent Bob that the internet has given people the ability to raise their voices and bitch about movies and so on and so forth. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing that
Moviepoopshoot.com
a little bit, but he's like poop shoot, yeah, and it's like, what the fuck is the internet, so on and so forth. But that just really was, man, we didn't even realize how bad it was going to get in the coming years, because that was still in more or less the infancy of just the essence of creativity or like connectivity, I should specify. And yeah, it's only just got so much more viral and toxic and all of these different things as the years have gone on. But that was speaking about prophetic scenes, that was very much so at that time. And that was when people just had message boards and stuff, which is like the Reddit equivalent at this point, So
yeah.
And, it's that's the internet, man. Like, they say that like Facebook is like, oh, it's like it's ruining friendships and families and stuff like that. But is it really, or is it just like bringing out the sides of people that never had a chance to see the light of day before?
No, you have influence on that. I mean, that's come out publicly that the algorithm has played into people's rage and so on, where things are being catered and people are, and this is where money is a bit corrupt. They Live was just on TV today, and we were talking about how relevant it is today, and I say it needs to be updated because it's not, the glasses with the obey and consume and all that stuff. It's even more hyper personalized than that with the internet. I don't think stuff like Facebook gives people voices. If it were just an open platform, if it were Reddit, maybe. But Facebook,
I'm not saying voices like in like a good or a bad way, as so much as just like it lets you see people talking about things you wouldn't have seen them talking about before. Like, you have your coworker. Like, I've got a couple of coworkers who I never would have suspected were super, super, super disturbing right wing, like to the point of like they're like posting things on Facebook that are like, oh, impeach Trump, I'll grab my gun, we'll see who wins.
Yeah, that's scary.
And it's like, I never would have known that about this person 30 years ago, but now I do. Is that good or bad? I don't know. It's probably bad because it does make things toxic.
Well, to swing in the other direction for you, Lindsey, part of the problem with the right's problem with the left is the left is too hypersensitive, and it could be hyperbole. And a lot of people who seem to jump to react to comments like that, with the Second Amendment. I forgot what the word was that he used. Second Amendment. We should use Second Amendment.
Well, like not to use a loaded.
Yeah, But
Not,
okay.
yeah, not to use a loaded analogy, but I feel like there's like a thumb on the trigger or a finger on the trigger, so to speak, from both
Yes.
sides as far as
Yes.
It's knee-jerk reaction, whether left or right.
Yeah.
And this isn't to give any political affiliation. I'm registered independent. Most of my friends are liberal, and most of my family members and stuff are.
You
very,
watch TV,
very
you think
right-wing,
it's
and I lie somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, right. Which most of the country does, by the way. The country's purple, but you watch TV, it's only red and blue. That's the really strange thing about what this world is. Like I have never completely agreed with anybody in my life, and the nature in which television, media, whatever, I'm completely this color. Like that's insanity. Like I voted for presidential candidates from both parties, and not supported things that each of them has done. So like to be 100% behind somebody's a little strange. I don't know how we got here, but
we're talking about tribalism, which does play very well into Star Wars, because it's like the two tribes, and nobody's willing to find the middle ground. That's why, like I said earlier, like, okay, let's all just say one thing about this movie that we liked. Because
that's like fandom in general, right? I mean, DC versus Marvel, and those two camps of people who can I like both. I'm Towley in that degree. I choose both. And yet there is so much of a just segmented, just disrespect.
Democracy.
It's lame.
Well, imagine the idea of democracy. Just oh, you like this? Well, I like this. How can we live together? Is an idea that I think is lost on us. Again, purple. All right, so this is the most important thing to you. This is the most important thing to me. How can we coexist without wanting to destroy each other? And it seems like we're not getting closer. We're getting further away and more into these tribes. And it does. It kind of trickles down into our silly fandoms.
Well, and then like you talk about this Facebook like feeding into rage, it does it with Star Wars as well, because it's not the people in the middle. It's not the 2.5 ratings on Yelp that you're talking about. It's the 1 star or the 5 star.
Yeah.
Those are the loud
voices.
Yes,
you're absolutely right. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Like I go to those screeners sometimes down here in LA that I technically shouldn't, but I do to see like early cuts of movies and stuff like that, and it's never. They never pay attention to me when I'm like, yeah, the movie was all right. When I said that movie fucking sucked. Sorry.
No, we're good. We're
That's
good.
when they take note. No.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't care about middle ground. It's because there's nothing sexy about middle ground. It's love or hate, and it's
high ground.
But yet, isn't that like the worst thing though? Like I described the feeling of indifference to Rise of Skywalker a little while ago, and that is kind of in some aspects how I feel. Shouldn't you either love it or hate it? Because it's almost like being wishy-washy is even worse, because it didn't induce any reaction out of you. You were just kind of like, eh. And I think in some ways that's worse.
Being content. If 90% of people are content, that's worse than 50% of people loving something and 50% hating. Is that better?
Now you raise a very good point there. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going back to my religious programming, where it's like you're either for us or against us, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And it is something I fall back on. But just to tie into what Lindsey said about just reactionary, it has to be really enthused, whether it's hateful or loving. Yeah. And so if you just don't really care either way, I would imagine that almost upsets them more to a degree.
I think that, I have, like I said, this has suddenly gotten really political. I have friends on both.
Again, tribalism.
Yeah, right. I have friends on both sides of the aisle, and I don't consider myself, I dip my toe into both pools. But my first instinct is listen. All right, so what is your problem? Okay, so that. All right, is it reasonable? People just jump to these hyper reactions, and it's instant. And it's like I want this done, like this cancel Netflix thing. All right, you don't care about priests raping children, but you want Netflix canceled because they They had a fictional version of Jesus Christ as gay. Where are your values that, like, this is the thing that you're jumping to?
It's like what's the line from Sucker Punch? If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. If you stand for everything, you fall for nothing.
Really? I don't know about that.
I mean, no, that's not the quote. I mean, maybe I'm trying to stay. Like, you're if you're constantly always, everything's always the hill you're trying to die on. Now I'm getting away from the quote from Sucker Punch. If everything's the hill you're dying on, if everything's the fight you're about, do you really actually stand for anything if everything's worth dying over?
Gary says the left always loses, even when they win, they lose, which is pretty funny because it's kind of true. You can't get further right than me. Well, Gary, I hope not, because I think we're pretty right. We're pretty pink right now in this political world. Oh wait, there's a super chat. I apologize, Caleb. I apologize. Look at this, trying to get back to regular movie talk. Do you think Star Wars should take the
stay on target?
Do you think Star Wars should take the Joker route and focus on solo character-driven movies, maybe like Quentin Tarantino Mace Windu film? Ooh.
I mean, I'm down. The best I mean, Mandalorian's amazing, and it's a small story. Just tell small stories. Just tell. Like, don't worry. Like tell your Iron Man. Don't worry about making it a big franchise. Just tell one good story, and then if people accept that story, build off of it. Don't start with movie 5. Don't be thinking about movie 5 as you're making movie 1. Work up to movie.
Yeah, that's
well, and they didn't do that this time, though. You know, they didn't even think about the next movie, really, let alone.
But like, it goes back to what we were talking about before. Iron Man. Did they have any sort of plan with that? It was just, let's make Iron Man.
Let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Make a good movie. Yeah, you have the property, you have this universe. You know, tinker with it. You have decades of history to look through. I don't know. Mandalorian feels like a space western for the most part. I mean, the episode 6 had very horror elements to it. Yeah. But you know, you can insert movie here. Make a musical in the Star Wars universe. I don't think that's the strongest thing to do, but
here's some interesting examples, like Avatar. There's just assumption that they're going to get 5 movies.
Yeah, 6.
And I guess we're guaranteed them because they're already made. But what if everyone watches 2 and they're like, "This is horseshit"? Yeah. You've got 4 more you have to release after that, and people don't want them.
Yeah,
and then Fantastic Beasts, like, you know, we're going to make 5 of these. The first one's okay. The second one is horrible. I still contend that the third one's not happening. And J.K. Rowling's recent Twitterverse is not helping with it. Mm-hmm. It's just like, don't put the cart before the horse. Like, you focus on making something good, and then you can branch off from it. Like, that's what killed DC. That's what killed the Dark Universe. But you go back and you look at the first couple Marvel movies.
That's what I was about to mention.
Like, Avengers was a pipe dream. They're like, hey, okay, if people like Iron Man, we got Hulk and Iron Man coming out the same year. If people like them, we'll do Captain America and Thor, and then we'll go from there. And it worked out because they took their time. And then Iron Man 2 was crap and did nothing but try and build off of stuff. And but everything else is so good it didn't matter.
But yeah,
I'm losing we've been talking for so long, my brain's getting a little fried.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up relatively soon. But
it's a good episode though, 2.5 hours.
Yeah. The presumption of success, I think, is I mean, and we again, it kind of sticks back to what we were talking about. Disney taking 80% of the box office from 2019. That plays into it. Like, there's a problem here. We have a monopoly in film, at least film, like major film, a mainstream film, because if you name your best 10 of the year, how many of them are Disney?
Which I just got done doing.
Oh, you did your horror. I can read off your horror, but I don't know if that's your combined list.
Yeah.
I actually did a completely separate list that didn't include any of the horror stuff. And it was originally 20, and then it bolstered to 25. I mean, in my actual top 10, though, as I look, not Knives Out being one, Once Upon a Time being another, Art of Self-Defense with Eisenberg, that's fantastic.
Right.
Dolomite. No, well, actually, no, Endgame is in my top 10.
Endgame is in my top 10.
Yeah.
That is Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah, that is Marvel.
Jojo Rabbit is Fox.
Toy Story 4 is a little out.
Jojo Rabbit is Fox via Disney.
Which means it's now... Yeah,
I have...
It's now Disney.
So, of my top 10, 2 films are Disney owned. Of the box office, 80% is owned by Disney. So I have the inverse. Lindsey, do you have your 10? Do you...
Vamp for a minute. I'm trying to see if I can throw together a list here really quickly, just so I can have something to contribute here.
Well, I mean, I know we were going to talk about like our official, like, final list. What, next Monday, or were we planning for the following Monday after the New Year, or?
Well, I guess this coming week is the last one we're doing for the year, right?
Well, yeah. We have no choice. There's no more Mondays left.
You're Monday.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, this is like maybe a preview of a couple picks, but I mean, I've been very adamant about how Knives Out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, JoJo, Wild Rose, stuff like that. I mean, I'm still shifting the order around a little bit, and I've rewatched a couple of them, but.
Oh, Paul. Okay, so I have 7 right now.
7 Disneys?
None of them. No. If I'm doing a top 10, just quickly looking at all the movies I saw this year on like my AMC list of previous tickets and stuff, and none of them are Disney actually. Freaks, Parasite, Knives Out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Jojo Rabbit, Never Surrender, and Good Boys. That's what I have so far.
No, Good Boys is in my top 2.
It's too good not to be.
It's probably maybe the funniest movie I watched this year aside from
Wait. So
I love it.
We're getting a comment in the chat. Disney's not 80%; it's 35%. What is the report that you have, or what is the source that you have that claims Disney's 80% of the box office?
Okay, wait, no, 35% is something else. I think that's 35% of the movies that are being released. I think I know what figure. I could be wrong about that, but here, let me see if I can pull up some figures here.
So, Gary, in case you missed the beginning, Disney has grossed 80% has accounted for 80% of.
Oh, wait, okay.
Or is it,
so 80% of 2019's box office hits were Disney.
And how do you define hits? Number one. See, we got clickbaity without even knowing it. Thanks for the correction, Pete.
That's
Thank
the
you.
issue with reaction culture.
Well, no, that was Gary. That was Gary. Excuse me.
Yeah, so it's 80% of the box office hits.
And what's a hit?
So of the movies that did really, 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 really well at the box office this year, 80% of them were.
Who wrote that? That's a little gray.
Well, I'm seeing that through The Verge. I'm seeing that through Screen Rant.
What's the line for hit? Is it 100 million? Like, what? I want to know what the floor for a hit is.
Exactly. Yeah. So you see, this is what we're getting. We got clickbaited without even realizing it.
Thanks, Gary.
Well, I mean, I know that this was the year where they had their most billion-plus worldwide films.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They
six
had,
so far.
Six or I mean, 2016, 17 was where they had like their highest number, and then this year they were already surpassed in that regard, and Skywalker hadn't even come out
yet. Is it that billion-dollar properties? Are there 10 billions this year, and Disney's 8 of them?
No. So 2015 had, I think, 5 movies that hit $1 billion. That was the first year that did that. This year, Disney's had 6, and Rise of Skywalker is going to be the 7th. But I think the only non-Disney movie so far this year that's hit $1 billion was Joker. Not even Detective Pikachu hit that, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, they had 6.
Okay.
As you mentioned, so Frozen 2, Aladdin, Lion King. Endgame.
Disney has 80% of the top 10 highest grossing. Thank you, Ben.
Okay.
Caleb, super chat. Should Quentin Tarantino forget Star Trek and just shock audiences with reviving John Travolta's career a second time with the Battlefield Earth thoughts? Man, Caleb, you really want us to talk about Battlefield Earth, huh? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tarantino and Travolta with Battlefield Earth.
I mean, it'd be interesting.
I'm just more about the abandonment of his Star Trek idea, because when he was on the press circuit, with the upcoming home release that was like a month or so ago for Once Upon a Time, yeah, he just pretty much stifled the idea that Star Trek film is ever happening at this particular point. And there was a bunch of different news feeds that were saying that, yeah, it's pretty much dead in the water. So I honestly never thought it was going to happen anyway. I was mildly intrigued by the idea, but we're kind of getting our R-rated Star Trek with the CBS All Access show that's been going on and is about to hit its second season. I just want him to do that third Kill Bill, because that's what he was hinting at on the press circuit as well. Is the fact that he finally thinks he has that idea for that little girl all grossed up.
I don't care what Tarantino does, just as long as there's an 11th film. This him doing 10 and saying deuces is absurd to me, because I was really fired up for 2019 because Once Upon a Time, and I had a Star Wars. I had a Tarantino and a Star Wars this year, and a Scorsese this year. What a bizarre year. And I was kind of ho-hum on Once Upon a Time, and Star Wars, I'll get back to you if I could get through it again. But as far as Battlefield Earth, I'll tell you this, Caleb. I do think Tarantino, Travolta should call Tarantino and ask him for a favor, at the absolute very least.
I would have loved to have seen it just because it'd be so weird, but it's probably for the best that we don't get a Tarantino Star Wars. I don't think Tarantino is going to retire after 10 movies either. You guys know who Hayao Miyazaki is, right? Like Spirited Away and stuff like that. He has been saying for like 10, 15 years, no, my next movie is going to be my last. My next movie is going to be my last. And then The Wind Rises that came out in 2013 was supposed to like definitively be his last film. And like that's part of the story of that movie, is a man talking about how you can only be creative for so long and then you lose your juices and you're just useless. Like that's in that movie. But since The Wind Rises came out in 2013, he's made a short film called Borrow the Caterpillar, and he's currently making something called How Do You Live? So,
yeah,
even when you make a movie about retiring, you still don't retire.
And I think it's Soderbergh, man. Soderbergh was like, no, I'm done. And he did some TV for a while, and then he came back with like Logan Lucky and Unsane and whatever. So, I don't know, Michael Jordan retired, came back and played for the Bulls again, and then retired again, and came back and played for the Wizards. I hate to use the sports analogies, but
it's apropos.
So if Tarantino goes out at 10, I'm really going to look back at his career and be like, that's unfortunate, because as much as we try to avoid this stuff, the person has kind of, like, I don't like Tarantino in interviews. Like, he knows he's hot shit at this stage, and I think I'm tired of it. There was.
I'm with you there. Yeah. The element of arrogance. Yeah. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question. I think it was at Cannes, about the amount of screen time for Sharon Tate, and he says, "I reject your hypothesis." And it's like, dude, it's a fucking reporter asking you a question. Don't be a cock. Like, yeah. All right. So they misinterpreted your artwork. Just correct them and.
Well, I mean, that's Tarantino being Tarantino.
Yeah, but enough.
If he doesn't like other people.
Yeah. All right.
I agree, but like you just can't change some people, and he's just a cokehead who's always going to be an aggressive.
Whoa, allegedly.
I love the guy. I love him to death. I would love to sit down at a table and talk movies with him and have him rip the hell out of me and make me feel embarrassed. And stupid. I want that.
Well,
but I go in knowing it's him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the aspect of having to separate the art from the person. I love Guns N' Roses, but I know Axl Rose is a little shithead asshole. Yeah. Same with Glenn Danzig. Same with a lot of these uber creatives who have seen success and they're very full of themselves because of it. But it's also very obvious that they're great at what they do. Yeah. So
some more than others.
Tarantino has been off-putting. There's obviously lots of people.
Some people who don't have talent that are pretty full of themselves.
Truly, it's a nasty thing. But I do still contend you try to separate the art from the person, if at all possible. So,
Caleb.
Sometimes it's tough,
Caleb, $5.
And art is subjective.
Yeah, indeed it is. Again, $5. Thank you, Caleb. Do you think?
Oh, sure.
At least it's a pivot. Do you think The Fanatic would have went from good to great if Tarantino would have directed it? Yes. That's an easy question, guys.
I mean, God, I want to see that so badly. That sounds amazing from what I've heard from that movie.
So is it still written by is it a Tarantino directed, Fred Durst written film? Because
Yes.
that's weird.
Yes.
That I want to see.
I want that more than life itself. I want a Fred Durst script and Tarantino director. That sounds incredible.
There would have to be a little dance scene with Mr. Travolta. That's the one thing that you have to be positive Tarantino would have just been incessant about adding into.
Well, yeah,
that,
when he does
but-
the moose thing, he could somehow do a dance there too.
Yeah, it would have been awkward dancing based on that character. My God, what an awkward character. The strangeness was immense.
Yeah. So if it's a Tarantino directed, Fred Durst written film, it's fascinating. The
Yes, Fred still writes it.
That's a fascinating idea.
Well, I think there are some directors who can turn anything into at least interesting mess, and I think Tarantino is one of them. So
You'd know there'd be an N-word in there somewhere. Right. So apologies to something I said months ago when I was talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that I said that somehow he squoze the N-word in there, and I was wrong. What I meant to say was he squoze multiple feet into that movie, and we counted at least 4 sets of bottom feet. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So he has tropes. Sometimes it's the N-word, sometimes it's the bottom of somebody's foot. I just misspoke and misremembered. But correcting myself from July.
Yeah, it was something Catherine mentioned when we were watching the movie. She was just like, "Oh man, the guy really loves his feet, doesn't he?" And I was like, "It's his thing."
Yeah, Margot Robbie in the theater is all dirty, just like, what? Why are her feet so dirty?
Because who doesn't like a dirty foot? Yeah, but I think Once Upon a Time was like the most Tarantino. I don't know if we can get more Tarantino than that.
And again, it's another thing where I'm just like, I think Django, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained is the top. I don't know if we're getting better than that, because Hateful Eight felt a little pretentious, a little.
I love it.
I think he's sucking himself off a little bit there.
I'm not the biggest fan of Hateful Eight, and yet I have yet. I haven't watched that extended. There is an extended version that's like compartmentalized. That's on Netflix or something, where they add a bunch of additional footage, and it's, I don't know. I still haven't watched that, but it felt more like a stage play. It's still well written and decently acted, but it was just a little long in the tooth, and it still has never really particularly done it for me. But
that's cool.
Yeah, so Once Upon a Time in Hollywood feels like a love letter to old school Hollywood, which I listen, I know there's people there for it, but the thing about changing history in Inglourious Basterds is neat. The thing about doing it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is different for some reason, because World War II, the backdrop of World War II in Inglourious Basterds, he's the leader of Germany. He's killing people. You swipe over to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Sharon Tate is just an actress. Why are we talking about her if nothing happens to her? It's because we know what happens to Sharon Tate that makes the ending interesting, I guess. I don't know. But that switcho changeo makes her character in the movie pointless. And your silence frightens me.
No,
that's a bold contention. Yeah, for sure.
It is an interesting thing. Did we need Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? No.
Right.
Like, we don't need to see an alternate reality where Sharon Tate didn't get killed. There's very little to take from that in their 2019 world. But at the same time, it is it's a fascinating thing to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like saying let's have Tarantino direct The Fanatic. I mean, it's fun what ifing, but if you have Sharon Tate in a role with DiCaprio's character in the movie, then it makes sense. But to have Sharon Tate in that movie just does not make sense.
Well, the reason for it is because, it was so random and it was so senseless and didn't need to happen. And it was just for like the worst reasons committed by just the worst people.
You could say that about any murder, though. I mean,
no, you're absolutely right. But what murder is going to draw Tarantino in? Some random person in Wisconsin or something connected to the history of Hollywood. The history of Hollywood. So if he wants to tell that kind of story about righting such a horrible injustice, which does kind of seem to be his thing these days, getting revenge for slavery, not Inglourious Bastards, and now this, he's trying to make movies that make up for like our wrongs of the past in a weird way. I kind of want to see what his next one's going to be. Is he going to do that again, or is he? I guess he kind of skipped it with Hateful Eight because that doesn't really undo or change history in any way.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. He had a one-off with Hateful Eight.
Right.
Although, if I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, even though I side more with Lindsey on this one, I will kind of agree with CP in the fact that it was kind of gimmicky in that regard, because of the fact that it probably got butts and seats out of just general curiosity as to whether they're going to kill her or not.
We were talking about it,
and it's essentially a footnote, in the story, because it's all about these two guys,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That was unintentional, but
that one's free.
Convenient in that regard, but. Yeah, exactly. But that is really just kind of a ploy of sorts to get people into theaters of like, are they going to do it? Are they going to follow history, or are they going to do what he did with Inglourious Bastards and switch some shit up, And but yet it's really rather inconsequential aside from the whole like finale craziness with the family, so to speak. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just strange. Like Brad Pitt, him being in the movie makes sense because, I mean, he's there for the climax of the thing, and it just, I don't know.
I still love it.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
No, you raised good.
I don't hate it. Gary brought up a point. Do you think The Rise of Skywalker will make $100 million this weekend? And we'll close with that. That's an interesting question because if it does, I think it'll be close.
Right, as in like 100 million total domestic, or 100 million just like 100 million just like from Friday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday.
So when we're talking in on Monday, will I be reading a 3-digit number? I mean, it made 32 million yesterday, but I mean everybody's
probably, off. Yeah.
So it made 177 last weekend. You're predicting.
I see.
You're predicting a what percentage drop off? I mean, it's still pulling in 20 plus a day.
It's probably going to be like a 60% drop off. So like a 170 down. What's 170?
I'm going to say it's going to be like 90.
Yeah, I don't think it's breaking triple, but or going into the 3 territory. It's not going over 100 this upcoming weekend.
If it does, then the internet's going to need to fold on itself because how do you call it a failure now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that'll just be relying on the word of mouth and the fact that I still keep encountering people that are the more casual Star Wars fan as opposed to the hardcore Star Wars fan like us, and they really loved it. I mean, I've talked to a handful of people who are like, it might be my favorite Star Wars film ever because it like it did everything I wanted
Bronco
it to do
before
and referenced all this different stuff, So
I think it's gonna just barely, because if it's
100
170, if it's a 60% fall off, it'll be 102 from 170.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean. So if it's a 50% fall off, it's fine. But
50% is about 80, 90. Wait, 80, 83.5.
Oh wait,
50% is 83.5.
So if it falls 60% of 170, it's going to fall $102. So that means it's going to come down to about 68 million.
50% is 88.5.
Yeah. So I'd say it's probably going to be like 45-50%. So it's probably going to be like upper 80s.
Yeah,
90s,
I'll say 90.
But,
yeah.
I mean, I would not be surprised if it makes 100 million. But just like
I'll be happy if
math,
it does, just to shut these people up. Just like, you know what? You don't dictate. You with your fucking spoiler leaks for 3 months talking about leaks and 6 endings, and they're still filming, and they're just shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, and I mean, also, it's kind of obvious that this new Jumanji is not as formidable of an essence of competition for this last Star Wars movie. So, I mean, I liked the new Jumanji, but I didn't love it. You know, I thought the previous one was significantly more entertaining, but comparable, you know. So I just don't think people care as much this time.
And again,
there's a lot of entertainment distractions this weekend too, you know, with college football games and, you know, all this other stuff.
You look at what was released this week: Little Women, Uncut Gems, Spies in Disguise. I don't see any of those as major threats. I mean, it's going to coast. It's going to come in first again, to little surprise. Gary says,
it's going to come in first for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, you know, like
Box Office Pro predicts 85 to 100. I'd be happy for Star Wars as a whole if it clears 100, but I'm going to say about 90.
You know, guys, I think we should start the Twitter account, remake Rise of Skywalker.
remake the last 7 movies. Just start over again after Phantom Menace.
That'd be kind of fun.
And bring George back, and let's get some of those original notes, and you know, because he did have an entire plan for 9 of them.
That's just hashtag everything. Just bring back, you know, I don't know, bring any minuscule thing. Bring back.
According to George Lucas, the Emperor was dead after, so it couldn't have been a whole.
Well, according to George Lucas said, I mean, George Lucas also introduced that dumb theory about Darth Plagueis the Wise. So, I mean,
that's true.
Well, which they wrote a whole Legends novel about too. It was originally canon, and then when Disney, I actually heard it's good.
It all depends on Jar Jar.
I've never read it. It's like one of the few that has a very prominent respect that not to check out, and it just threw that little possibility out there. Obviously.
He may have gone too far in a few places. Hopefully it'll be all right.
Everyone.
I'm like, Georgie, never Georgie.
Oh, God.
It's prime. It's like poetry.
I think we should wrap it up, guys. We're getting close.
Yeah, holy shit.
Here. We're getting punched.
All right. Fuego, what do you got coming up?
So I filmed a little bit about the Christmas special yesterday, which I had never watched in its entirety, and I think I might try to actually finish the edit. It's a little bit later than I.
Sorry.
We haven't gone for almost 3 hours, but that's something I can probably crank out with the quickness. And then the spoiler review is coming very soon with Cecil and myself on my channel in Fuegotainment, and then Cecil and I are getting some awesome assistance from none other than CP here with our best, worst, and most anticipated of the year. I think you're helping us out with all those.
I already.
So you can
see he sent things backwards to me. He sent me the order of you guys releasing. I edited backwards. The thing that you guys are releasing last, he already has. So I was like, wait, what? Oh. And the thing I'm doing right now is the second thing. So I'll be editing the first thing last, which is really, really cutting it close, especially you guys went long. You guys went a little long in some places.
Yeah, that we did. But that's all going to be on the Horror Show channel next month.
Next week?
Well, at the end of this month? Well, next week, but right at the, tail end of the decade, New Year, all that jazzness. Yeah. So, anticipated. And so we also just put up our Black Xmas, which was the 2006 kind of sequel-y, rebequel-y sort of thing, and then also the 1974 original film. So we put those up yesterday and the previous day on the Horror Channel, youtube.com/the Horror Show channel.
Lindsey.
I've had this idea for a little bit of doing like a series of videos on my channel. Like I would call it like Script Doctor or something like that, and I go through and just like make little tweaks to a story. It's basically still the same thing, but you just remove things. I'm thinking about doing. I've never done one. I'm thinking about doing one again for Rise of Skywalker. I thought about doing one for like Crimes of Grindelwald and a few others, but so we'll if I could get like a funny enough script together, I'll try and do something like that. But that's the only thing and like end of year stuff too. Like that's best and worst of the decade or the year, or one of those two. Coming up on my 2 cents of nonsense. I'm playing with ideas.
Yes, and I'm currently, as Fuego brought up, I'm out for freelance right now. But nothing before we see you again for Monday. But I'll have a bunch of the list, which is every movie I've seen in 2019. That'll be January. There's zero chance that comes to you by New Year's. And Emily and I will be doing stuff for 3 separate channels. But again, none of that will be prevalent until after we see you again, which is Monday. Hopefully we'll be talking about $100 million Star Wars weekend. Otherwise, that means the fans have won. The internet has won. For Fuego and Lindsey, I am CP. We will see you Monday.